you can put us live on TikTok, and we'll all join there.
Putting us live on TikTok. Just hop over there, guys, when you're ready.
What are we doing?
Take your phone, hop onto TikTok, join it there, so people can join us on TikTok as well as YouTube.
Oh, is that
YouTube
dude, my phone's on
live?
charge. I'm gonna be real with you. Hold up.
All right, cool. We'll have JJ on there, and then just have a weird, quiet moments.
The only last time I did that, it wouldn't let me turn down the volume, so I was echoing the whole time.
Yeah, so I just have mine without my headphones plugged in, and I just turn it all the way down, and it has a tiny bit of volume, but you can't hear it in the background.
See, I did, and it was very weird.
Right. Well, the other thing you could do is like maybe plug headphones into your like phone if you've got another pair, and just leave them aside so it comes out through the headphones. How do I join you there?
That's true. What was that?
How do I join you?
Oh yeah, let me. It's me just inviting you guys. Here we are.
You dream about going up there, but that is a big mistake. Just look at the world around you, right here on the ocean floor. I'm requesting to join. What more is you looking for? Under the sea. Under the sea.
There we go. There we go.
Darling, it's better down where it's worth it. Take it from me.
So there we go.
TikTok Tisuk. Hello, nice to meet you. Can you add a friend? We are locked in for a live podcast, so we cannot add a friend. Apologies.
Yes.
Yeah, tell them.
You're more than
Another
welcome to
time.
hang out.
Hang out though.
Oh, we've got
Obviously,
Kenny in
Shut Up
chat
and
on
Cut is in
YouTube.
the chat as well.
Oh,
All
Not
right.
allowed to hang out with us.
hey Kenny, how you doing, man? We're doing a Better Call
right.
Saul retrospective episode, so it's gonna be sick. It's gonna be fun.
Perfect.
Are you ready to kick
All
off?
right.
Is everyone ready to kick off? Well, Tate, I don't have
Yes.
in chat, and JJ, your face isn't on TikTok.
Correct.
My cellular mobile is on Chargeroo, so
Yeah,
Sorry
Tate's a
about that
lost
one.
cause. Tate's a lost cause. JJ, I think it's a
what's
decision.
new? What's
Uh,
new?
And
I've
Eliana's in
been
chat on
missing
YouTube
it.
as well. Hi,
Oh, we'll
Eliana.
get
Thanks for
there,
joining
Tate.
us.
Oh, we'll get there. Like,
Oh, I'm waiting for the intro. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just, it's lagging for me right now.
So for those of you that are joining us either on TikTok or YouTube, this is a live taping of a Brews and Bullshit episode for One with the Films. It's one of the side projects that we do where we just kind of brew and bullshit. Well, we don't brew, we drink the brews. But today we're doing a retrospective episode on Better Call Saul, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how it compares to Breaking Bad. So, yeah, and Kenny says, I see that. I've never seen the series, so I'm a bad human.
well,
I mean,
neither had JJ
yes.
until we until
this
we
is one of
did
my
that.
proudest moments is getting JJ to watch that. But
I had reservations. I'm gonna admit.
We'll
It's
get
not-
to them. We'll
We
get
will.
to that part all there. Like, and I'm very excited to talk about that part.
But
specifically.
Kenny, have you seen Breaking Bad? Because we're going to be probably spoiling both series here. Just like not necessarily going through it from start to finish, but like our discussion is going to be coming from the perspective that you've seen everything.
There will
so
be
we're just going to be
spoilers in
we're
both.
just going to be talking. And the episode is called "The Winner Takes It Soul."
All right.
Nice.
So, we ready to go, guys?
Yes. Okay, give me just 2 seconds before you start. I'm just going to crank your volume just a tiny bit. Talk for
You
me.
gonna crank
Well,
this
I can
all the way
also
as
get
well?
this a little bit closer if
Yeah,
that works better.
that's beautiful. Let's do that. Okay.
All right.
Rock and roll.
Great.
Ready to
Sounds
go?
great.
We're live we're live already, but like we're taping in 3, 2, 1.
I'm gonna wait for Tate for a second.
Sorry. I forgot.
This is off to a great start.
Brilliant. This is brilliant television.
Here we go. Television. This is a podcast.
Whatever.
Hey! Don't
Little
sell us
did
short.
you know.
We will be on TV one day. I'm telling you now.
That's it. I am
That's
You're
fair.
here
manifesting
right
that
now,
for
and
you.
you're
I am
here for the
You'll
moment.
be on
manifesting that for you.
TV. You'll be on
That's
TV.
correct.
It's like New Zealand man arrested at a circuit premiere after Dave Filoni was dive tackled into the crowd.
All right. So now off of that. All rise. Hey, all you lawyers, squat cobblers, and Cinnabon makers. It's time for One with the Films. We're your film podcast that gives you the right to be unhinged, unfiltered, and unlistened to by a majority of the population. However, the 5 Solonites and Bad Batchers and D&D enthusiasts that are here, welcome. all of you deviants and all you to the least pretentious, highest low quality podcast. And this is the show equivalent of that hot second cousin to our main show, and where we talk about whatever we want with or without structure over a couple of drinks with friends. Now, but who are we? We all, well, I mean, we're the Hamlindigos with the bestigos, and I'm that bi-flag themed Tuesday night Kevin Costner, Lalo Simper, defender of Wexler, movie K man the third. That's me, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing? And representing the defendant today is our empirically handsome public offender, the people's voice, Naf. On second thoughts, care to introduce yourself to the court?
Yes, thank you to the members of the jury. I'm Naf. On second thought, I talk film, TV, and a whole lot of Star Wars usually, but Better Call Saul is my love child, essentially. And similar to Mr. K himself, I am a huge defender of Kim Wexler as one of the best characters to be on TV of all time. And she has wonderful, beautiful, sweet dogs.
That is correct. That is
Christ.
correct. I
If you know, you know.
I know.
If you know, you know.
Unfortunately, no.
That speaks volumes of you, Tate. And on behalf of all people, we have the Queen of the North, personal attorney to the Targaryens, and let the record show that the court does understand how incongruent that sentence was. And she's a frequent flyer, but her outfits are always flyer-er. And a friend of the court and a friend of the public, a Saul convert, and a season 1 reigning best recommendation champion. Welcome to the stand, JJ.
Oh, JJ.
Wow, that heck of an intro. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for having
Listen,
me.
you've been on 3 times now. I have to try to outdo myself every time.
And
you did it. That was.
You'll be lining up another film to come back soon as well, I'm pretty sure, to see if you can back up. Because you had, last year, you won our award for Best Recommendation with Let the Right One In, which if you guys haven't seen, go and check it out, then listen to our episode afterwards, because it is in-depth and beautiful, and it's a fantastic film. It actually became one of my favorite all-time films, as per JJ's recommendation.
Really?
So, and I've been recommending it to people. Not just for the
That's
purposes
amazing.
of the podcast. But then she came back and we did Pride and Prejudice, which also I'd never seen before, and that was fantastic. But I'm really interested to see how you're going to blow our mind next. I'm very intrigued.
Yep.
How are you going to outdo yourself, Mommy?
I will. You know what? I will.
You can only laugh so much at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
No. Unlimited.
We have like
there's
3
no
copies
limits
of this conversation. So here's the thing. And making his court debut today is the representative from New Zealand. Do you know that you have facts? Tate says you do. And the kind-hearted and articulate man of the people, the Jägermeister, the Howard Hamlin sympathizer, the Bad Batch denier, the 99th reason, the record defector, the that's a no-go on Echo, the Omegas, not for Mega, the what? Sorry? Yeah? Oh, fuck, I forgot this was a Better Call Saul. Sorry. That was sorry. Okay. Yeah, but he likes Better Call Saul, so he's fine today. So anyway, Tate, would you like to introduce yourself to our lovely court?
Tate, can you hold up that bottle again, please?
Yeah.
I just want everyone to know who's watching visually. That is a full-size Jägermeister bottle, okay? Like, look how big that man's hands are, and tell me you don't want them around your throat. Just saying.
It's a little big, I won't lie. It's average, right? It's average size.
It's average, yeah. Anyway, tell the people about you. And Eliana, also in chat on YouTube, said Bad Batch Supremacy. So you're outranked here. Sorry, Tate.
That's right.
You got truthers.
Yeah, listen, you gotta have Bad Batch truthers.
All I want to say is, Omega's half the reason I watch that show. So don't.
I agree.
What's the other half?
Around.
However, I literally thought of that line and I was like, okay, I gotta go with it. Like, I was like, I knew that's the one you like. I was just like,
painting me with the dirtiest brush in the basket. It's very sad.
Fair enough.
Who am I? I don't know. I am Star Wars fact guy, the man who only knows one Star Wars fact per day. That's all you're getting out of me, to be honest.
What's today's fact?
Today's fact. After Return of the Jedi, when Endor became more accessible to like the general public and whatnot, the Ewoks started to farm caffeine, which is caf in the Star Wars universe, and Endorian caf is the best, regarded as some of the best coffee in the Star Wars universe.
Huh.
I live there.
You are an Ewok. It's
It's got
That's all I know.
Ewoks
It's
and
canon.
it's got really good coffee. I live there.
If you ask me anything else, I won't know. You could ask me like what happens in those movies. As well.
He knows one fact.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like,
That's
listen,
fine.
it's
He's
just,
tapped
you gotta
out.
have
He's
one.
he's tated.
He's
I don't know.
satiated.
You can wait. Hold on. Let me be professional. You can find me on TikTok at Star Wars Fact Guy. You can find me on YouTube at Star Wars Fact Guy, and you can find me on Instagram at Star Wars Fact Guy with a little underscore at the beginning and the end for underscore gang. There you go.
Beautiful. And I'll just
There
add to that as well. It's fact, not facts. There's actually quite a
fact
few
only.
facts guys that are people that are trying to take the crown, but that's not the case. And we'll also add
3 on Discord.
Kenny asked, where are my whiskey drinkers at? Shit, let's go hard. Do we have any whiskey drinkers in chat today?
Asleep.
Not
They're
not
asleep.
today. Not
They
today.
passed out.
Yeah,
Not
sorry,
today.
Kenny,
I
you'll
have
be
I
alone.
have some whiskey. I have some
I have
whiskey.
some
in the
good one,
cabinet,
yeah.
But like, yeah.
And
I
Ellie
got
said,
these tasters from Scotland. I got some like actual like tasters of scotch that I've been meaning to get to at some point.
I was pre-gaming to go out with some friends a few weeks ago, and they were drinking a very high-quality scotch, they called it, and it was just yucky. It was yucky. I didn't like it. And they're like, why? I'm
Fair.
wasting this on you. But Eliana also said, JJ, the Ewok is darling. And I'll add to that, JJ, you are darling as well.
That
Aw,
is correct.
thank you. That's very
And
sweet.
Tate, you're not too bad yourself.
Aw,
Yeah, I'm 6 out of 10 at the moment. Wait, the more
But
you
that
drink,
chin is 10
hey.
out of 10. Your jawline is really like
6.9.
6.9. We'll take 6.9.
Whoa, the Reddit number. Okay.
Hey, yo.
there it is.
Unrelated, have you guys seen what's been happening with Reddit the last few weeks?
Yeah, something's happening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
they put out a new show called Secret
Very
Invasion.
enlightening, JJ.
They
Just
put out a show called Secret
yeah, something's
Invasion.
happening.
They got some other content coming out this year. Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah, no, but like
Yeah.
they've got some kind of thing where
Glad
like,
I can
the,
amuse you. I'm
the
glad I can
CEOs
amuse
are
you
trying
that
to
much.
make everything
Hey,
like
man,
ad based.
I live to be easily entertained. Like
Dude, me too. Shiny lights, I'm there.
shiny, pretty lights. If it sparkles, I'm there. So speaking
Yep.
of sparkles,
My
let's
eyes
talk
sparkle.
about Saul.
Oh,
Yep. Like
Damn.
so now.
Fuck me, I guess. That's good.
Well, I mean, listen, you agree to disagree, but like, just as we go on,
Hey yo,
we
look at him
remember.
go.
Hey yo.
Hey, if I had
and
something
so-
else about that
Awesome.
size, would you put it in your mouth as well? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, maybe. It depends. Again, this
Are
is
you?
pretty average. I don't know if I can.
Yeah, average.
See, okay, all right. Let's we gotta at least like at
Johnny's in
least
chat.
start the topic.
Let's start.
But
Let's
like
is that John?
give me
that
top.
Wait
Give
a
me
minute.
top.
Johnny's in
Johnny-
here.
Start from the top.
John is in here.
Yeah.
And Kenny.
So
And Eliana. Yay.
we got a great group in here.
Seriously, good group. Hi, guys.
Sure.
Well, thank you so
So,
much, everyone, for
go
joining
with
us. We're going to go ahead and actually get started into the chat. So, Kate,
To the topic.
why don't you
yeah.
set the tone for us, my love? Set the tone for us.
Absolutely.
Okay,
so
sure.
now,
Oh.
God damn it, Dave.
You know what we didn't do as
can't
well,
do this
Kay?
to me.
We didn't talk about what we're drinking. What are we drinking?
Shit, you're right.
It's brews
Okay.
and bullshit. We've done a lot of bullshit. Where
That
the
is
brews
correct.
at? So today,
I decided to swipe
Naff,
things. I decided. Oh, go ahead. You
Okay.
naff.
Fine, I will. I
You
will.
naff. No, you go.
So I, naff, I'm not naffing, will be drinking Bilson's passion fruit triple distilled vodka. I have this one here and this additional
Very
packet of
60.
4. Whoops, I'm drunk already. So we're going to see how we go. I've got a lot of thoughts. I've got a lot of love. And I really want to kiss Kim Wexler.
Who
Fair
doesn't?
enough. I
Wow,
mean,
we're all
listen.
gonna say
Let's
the
just
same
be
thing. That's
frank.
crazy.
Like, come on. That's one take. That's not going to be different.
Like, she
Uh,
literally could be my
now-
mother, and I'm okay with it.
Mother
It'd
with
be
a
one- it'd be
capital
one of those.
M.
We're going full Game of Thrones at that point.
It's fine.
Like-
it's fine.
And now, here's the thing. I also am drinking a yellow can
Coors
beverage. This was no. I decided to go different than how I typically go, which is I tend to embrace the white, and I tend to basically
Right.
just drink White Claws. Today I have gone with Golden Road Mango Cart. You can't
Okay.
see it because my light's there, but you know we're just gonna get. With
I
the
tried a
branding.
few of those when I was in LA. Because for me, like, I'm not a big beer person. Like, I like things that taste nice, and to me, beer doesn't taste
Agreed.
nice. But I tried at some like public food place. They had a bar. I had either a mango cut or I think I had like a guava one, and it was like a beer with like a guava undertone under it. And I was like, this is like, it's very like refreshing. It's nice.
That's
When
what
you
I
add
like
extra
about mango
flavor
carts.
to beer,
Is it
I'm
has a
like,
little bit of fruit. Yeah, it has like the fruit with it. And
ooh, we've got
drinking that out of a
some
coffee mug.
we've got some drama in chat as well. Eliana first says the
Uh-oh.
vodka looks amazing, and it is delicious. It tastes like a passion fruit soda, but it gets you drunk.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
yeah, and Kenny also said to Johnny that he duetted one of his videos and hopes he doesn't get too mad at what he said. Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I'm drinking
Drama.
passion fruit vodka.
Marvel fandom's wilding out again. Oh no.
That's it.
Shocking.
So
The
I'm
one with
drinking.
the film's fandom is getting wild up in this chat.
It is wild.
All 7 of us. Like, listen.
So I'm
You
drinking
know what?
passion
I
fruit
would have it
vodka,
out of the way.
and Kay is drinking a mango cart. JJ, what are you drinking today, my love?
See,
Water.
to commemorate the perfect trilogy that is the Breaking Bad universe, I'm triple fisting it. Okay?
Come again?
We are
Can we
having-
catch up after chat?
Come again?
Happy Pride
what, that-
indeed.
That sounded like way better in my head, like way more innocent until you heathens.
No, it was
but
fine.
you know, that's not
it was fine
I-
to all of
It
us.
was innocent.
Like, we're
It was
great.
innocent. Yeah. You've got 3
You know-
fists. There's 3 of us. Let's go.
Correct. So we have a cup of coffee in my
I got 2
favorite
hands.
mug right here. It's my Game of
Wonderful.
Thrones mug. It's massive. And we have a vodka drink, which I put in a grape poppy drink. And it's not working, but I'm going to keep at it because I ran out of Red Bull and tonic. But
Okay.
it is what it is.
Fair enough.
Beautiful.
And then, because we're tripling it, we have a little shot of tequila.
Are you
for
sipping at the
very
shop, or are you
spicy
going
takes.
to?
My
No.
my thought process was I was just gonna go like
So-
a normal person, but then like when things get out of pocket, I'm like
So it
just
seems
to center myself.
Yeah, it seems,
enough.
and I don't know if the group would agree, but it just feels right that you smash that shot now and then pour another one so you have it ready to go for later. That's how I see it. I don't know if the group would agree, but it feels necessary.
I
for
think
you
that
to-
we're not. It's not going to take us long to have a hot take. So I think using it as a celebration of a hot take and then just doing one later when we have another one.
I
We'll
may
see.
have to like step out of the chat then to get out of the live to get the bottle.
That'll be fine. It's fine.
I
Again,
was
Well,
not
then we'll
ready.
leave that to
It
your
was-
discretion.
there's
You
no
know
what?
structure to that. And Eliana,
Cheers, my guys.
yes, great work, JJ. And JJ, Eliana also said she wants to drink with you because this is wild. And Eliana, are you coming to DiadCon? Because that'll be the place.
For also our One with the Films listeners, we will be hosting the opening night party and doing things there. So we will be doing an in-person delivering
guys
of
are quiet?
awards while we will be doing the podcast beforehand. So just as a shameless plug, because we're awesome
Hell yeah.
and no one knows who we are,
Love
so
it.
it's great. Like
gonna be beautiful.
it's
That's not a bad
So-
thing, not yet
Yeah.
at least.
You'll never know.
So the
Oh,
goal
yeah,
is
that's
between
the
now
thing.
and
Never
then.
know.
The goal between now and then is to blow up. Now,
All it
Take-
takes is one video.
and you
That's it.
guys will know that you were here at the beginning, all of you. So
so
with
Tate,
that said,
In the
Tate,
trenches,
what are
in
you
the
drinking?
trenches.
yeah, you've been
Yeah,
sipping
you're
at
in
this
the
little
trenches.
Jägermeister.
And now, Tate, speaking of trenches, what are you drinking today?
What else you got,
What
baby?
am I drinking tonight? I'm so glad you asked. This is
Regular bottle.
just a little regular average sized, a bit bigger than average to be honest, size bottle. We're getting there, so we're kind of lucky. You see that little limit there? We'll do a limit check every 10 minutes or so to see where we're at.
We'll
The goal is to get to there. We'll see how it goes. Depending on the level of heathenry, the level of hot takenness, we'll see how if we get to the bottom
Hot
tonight.
tated.
And then
And
on
pi-
standby, because I'm just feeling a little goofy tonight, Your Honor. We got a little average sized Gordon's gin
Beautiful.
on standby.
I'm a
Gin.
sucker for gin.
After
I'm,
Jaeger.
I'm a gin and tonic
And then-
fiend.
Listen,
every time.
JJ, we don't have to
Interesting.
worry.
What
is
It's
happening?
not. It's his rest of his day. It's
So-
not ours. So like,
We
you
have
know.
we have a little friend. here
So
to
we
join
do
us,
have a
just
whiskey
in case.
drinker.
We have a whiskey
You know what?
and cola drinker.
Good man.
Just
There you
in
go,
case.
Kenny.
So
You're not
Ken,
alone.
we do have one.
We have one, but you can't see me because I'm charging my phone. But
Mm.
yes, we do have one. That is what I'll be drinking, and I've got a cup of coffee too.
JJ, you've also dipped out of the TikTok live.
Yes, because I'm watching
we're making a
YouTube.
stand. We're making a stand right here.
So guys, if you're
I'm
on
looking at
TikTok,
the-
it's just me and Kay that's here. We've got Tate and JJ with us live as well, but we're over on YouTube where you can hear
keep
all four
watching
of us.
the YouTube,
So
JJ. We'll send people over.
come on over
Go to
and
the
catch up here.
States.
Otherwise, you're just going to hear a lot of gaps in between while these guys are giving their lovely, lovely
Absolutely.
points.
You're gonna see Tate. You're gonna see JJ. We're luring you in, but then we'll get you over there.
Yeah,
But
so Chase is in the TikTok chat. Come and hang over on YouTube, dude. It'll be wicked. You'll have a great time. I promise. We're drinking.
Absolutely. So to set the tone, when did this show come out? This is where I did my research. And so 2015, AMC premieres the Breaking Bad spinoff, Better Call Saul.
Mm.
And this happens, it first airs in February 8th, 2015. And to a lot of, obviously, hype. There was a lot of hype around this show. Not so much as more like hesitancy, because obviously, as everyone knows, Breaking Bad is always in the conversation for best show of all time. If it's certainly top 3, if not number 1. And it was kind of hard to basically go, okay, let's take the greatest show of all time, and the goofy lawyer in it, that's the next show. And just saying, and at the time there was conversation around, are they going to do a Gus spinoff? Are they going to do a this, where it's like, oh, that would be so interesting. And Saul, okay. And I feel like there was a fair amount of not unwarranted skepticism, but skepticism nonetheless going into this. Now, before we, obviously, JJ, I know you are kind of a very interesting person in this conversation, because Tate, you watched it live, or did you catch up to it?
That's a good question. So I watched Breaking Bad in 2019, and I was like, it's the time to start watching it. I thought, sure, why not? So I watched Breaking Bad, and I'm like, wow, that's really awesome. What else is there? And then I think El Camino had just come out at that point, so I watched that. And then my friend's like, oh, you got to watch Better Call Saul, dude. And I was like, okay, is it done yet? And he was like, no, it's on season 5. And I was like, yeah, I'll wait for it to be done, and then I'll watch it.
You very much are a finish the show in one. You don't like watching stuff week to week, do you, Tate?
Yeah, which is funny because I don't like binging. I hate the binge principle of sitting and watching 12 episodes in a row. But I like knowing that I can return to it at any point and complete it when I need to. So I think it was about lockdown. I started watching Better Call Saul to prep for season 6 coming back, and I only got to getting around to it during the season 6 mid-season break. Coming back to, I think, Fun and Games was the last episode, or the one before that. I just got caught up when that came out, so I managed to get the last 5 or 6 episodes live with everyone else, but besides that, I was just playing catch up and running, and I was like, all right, I'll finally get into it. I'm in my house. I have nowhere to go. I'll watch however many episodes a week. Nothing. I'm pretty recent, just like JJ.
So you guys kind of both, but Naf, you watched it sort of as it was coming out, right? Or were you also let me catch
mine
up
was in chunks. So when it came out, I was watching the first season week to week, and I think I finished the first season as it was coming out, and then perhaps started some of season 2 and then just kind of fell off. And then as season 5 was coming out, I caught all the way up and then stopped again. And then as season 6 was coming out, I caught up with season 5 and finished that. And then I watched season 6 week to week. And then post finishing the series, I did an entire rewatch of the Breaking Bad universe. Doing Breaking Bad, then El Camino, then Better Call Saul. And that complete watch of the series is that is probably some of, if not the best TV experience of all time. It is a very solid piece of content. A behemoth,
so I think we all kind of come at this from a different thing, because when I was watching it, I watched it live. I was watching it the day it aired. To kind of I watched it every season as it was coming out. I kind of was on this train from the beginning.
And I remember you saying that because you were watching it like with your parents as well, and your mum came from like a lawyer background, you had like a little bit of extra, like I suppose
That's
insight
interesting.
as to what was happening. So what was that experience like?
And
for you?
very interesting. And we're kind of going into it because I just wanted to establish where everybody's kind of expectations were. But yeah, like one of the things that was really interesting to me about this show was I had seen my mom write briefs, done the things there where it was like my mom and dad doing this stuff there, and my mom was more on the criminal side of law, so that like a lot of what the show was doing was very much her life,
Yeah.
except on the other side of the on the other side of the bench. But it was really interesting to see that the show went for the more realistic depiction of court rather than dramatizing it, because like they went with the concept that, oh, courtrooms are boring. And it takes a lot of work to actually get to the thing that we always see in the movies. And it's getting the dates. It's getting the, like, you know, talking to the various different people in the hallway. It's going down to the district courts. Like it was very interesting to see her reaction. There's some stuff that was a little bit different, but also they also were, because they actually had to they never put Breaking Bad in the time frame, but they had to put Better Call Saul in one. Because like if you watch Breaking Bad, they never actually had an intention to set this in any particular era or time.
Yeah.
But with Better Call Saul, they actually had to.
I guess in
So it's
retrospect,
really interesting
rewatching Breaking Bad, there's a lot about how the characters like act that makes it very telling of like its era. Like the early 2000s were just unbelievably cringe. And one of the things going back and rewatching Breaking Bad, I was like, there is stuff that's like difficult to watch because I'm just like, why are you acting like this? Why are the white people pretending they're gangsters? And like, I'm just waiting for one of them to drop a hard R. Like, it's so uncomfortable in some sequences. It's like, Jesse, what are you doing, bro?
Jesse, come on, man. Jesse,
Johnny says, as someone who would sit in at court hearings, they're honestly very entertaining for me.
Fair enough.
Of course, for Johnny, they're entertaining.
I was gonna say
Johnny's bar of
Johnny
entertainment is like,
we love you.
and it helped that he got extra credit for it in school though, so he's just lying.
Oh, so you had an incentive? That's the vibe? Like, so
that's there it is.
There we are.
Good one.
They bought
Good
him off,
one.
yeah.
Dog.
But so going into this show, we knew Mike was going to be in it, or at least I did. Like, because in the trailers, Mike was there, like, you know, very much there. So I come at it from a standpoint of I watched, you know, the previously on, like the whole, even on the next episode. So I would get these little clues as to who's coming in next. Like, I knew people like the cousins were going to be in it. I knew things like just seeing those moments because they would be hinted at in these little teasers to get you to watch next week, as if I wasn't going to. And the thing is that, so I come at this from a very different perspective than all of you guys. And for a long time, this show was kind of the thing that would be in my heart, and my family and I would watch it. Or like I'd go home. I was in college at some point, so it would be on my parents' DVR. So I would have to go over there to watch it. So I would go home and I would just be sitting down every week just trying to figure out what the fuck happened. And I would be doing that, and then I would go back home or back over to college. And then what ended up what happened is like I just would have these things, but then I would try to talk about it with people, and people were like, no, I don't watch Better Call Saul. And I was just alone with this in my bed and one of my other friends, where we were in the corner of our editing room, like our editing class, just talking about this week's episode. And like, so we were just there feeling like we were the only two people in existence watching this show. And it was so fun to then get to meet Naf and be able to start sharing it with him. And then to get to the craziest thing was getting you to watch it, JJ. That was that is the plot twist of this whole thing, is like just going, and then we were like, hey, I think that you would like this show.
Yeah, it was I will definitely credit these two, Keegan and Naf, for getting me into Better Call Saul. And to this day now, I regret not watching it live. I just want to put that on the record.
And I remember the question was that kind of pushed you over the edge? Because we'd asked you, we knew you loved Breaking Bad, and we said Better Call Saul, and you're like, I'm a little apprehensive, I have reservations. And you just kind of flat out asked us, which do you think is better? And I think it was our, like, without question going, Better Call Saul. Like no,
It was
it's
unanimous.
no question.
It was-
Yeah.
Did
Like
not
that.
have to think about that.
Yeah.
Like,
And even in a rewatch, like, I still stand by that. Like, and most people that I'll talk to, I'll explain to them like this. I'll say, I think that if you're just talking like pure quality, it's impossible to look at something like Better Call Saul and not unanimously agree that it's better. Because what you do is you take the people that were at the top of their game in Breaking Bad, making a show that was arguably as close to perfect as possible. You improve the technology. You give them no expectation. You go make whatever you want. You know, it's not like it didn't
give them the
feel
budget.
like when a new Star Wars or MCU project comes out and they need to tick certain boxes, you know? Like everything that connected the universe happened because it made sense for Better Call Saul, not for Breaking Bad. And so it's impossible to look at something of Better Call Saul and go, you took literally everything you learned making the greatest show of all time, and then we put you doing another show in that universe. Like, how's it not going to be better? You took, like, it's the guys going, what are the things that we did wrong that we could do better? How can we improve Breaking Bad? And one of the huge ones for me is I'm like, Breaking Bad is a brilliantly shot show, but I think that also depends on the director. Some directors just do a significantly better job than others, even though Breaking Bad is pretty consistent in its visual sort of tone.
Correct.
Better Call Saul is one of the most cinematic shows on television. It is impeccably shot. Every single episode, no matter the director, is perfect to look at.
I'll agree.
and so I'm curious with you guys because like going into this, I kind of basically went with my thing, which was I didn't know what this show was going to be when I first started watching it. Because even watching it live, it's like, is this going to be kind of more comedy than drama? Like, what is it going to be? Like, I don't know. Like, it's obviously Breaking Bad was a drama, but Saul Goodman is not a dramatic character, so I thought. And so we like season 1 starts. I'm curious when you guys did your watch throughs, like Tate, Nap, like JJ, season 1 expectations versus kind of like in your experience with season 1. Starting there, and then we'll go to kind of like what did it finish with? Like what did like kind of
So we want to know what expectations were, yeah?
But I'm more thinking about like also experience of the first season,
Sure.
the ups and the downs. Like what was stuff that stood out to you? Like not like exactly timestamps, but
Sure.
I'm just curious to know what really did resonate with you.
Well, Tate, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure, man. God, you start me off on the ask like one of the most intense and thought-provoking questions and throw your boy under the bus.
Bitch, if you watched our show, that's what I do. Like,
I mean, I haven't watched Better Call Saul. I don't know what you mean. I don't know
I don't know why I'm here. Like, sort of.
Who's Saul?
Who is this guy?
Who is it? You
Which
mean Jimmy?
also is so funny for a person that just watches Better Call Saul and not Breaking Bad, wondering who the fuck is Saul? Like, I get like there's this one reference to this like thing in like the first season, but it's like, who? Until
Who is-
season goddamn 4, like. You know?
Oh no!
Even my cat is all shocked. She's just looking, what the fuck?
So
I will
to your
start
point,
it-
yeah.
I will start it off with a funny story and then I'll get into the real thing. So I was watching it on a friend's recommendation, and at the time we didn't have a streaming service here in New Zealand that had it, so I had to do ye olde piracy. And he sent me a link to a site to watch the first episode, and it ended up being the 7th episode of season 1.
Oh no!
And so no, here's the thing, right? It starts off. I think it's like Chuck and Jimmy are sitting, and they're at the park bench, and he's like trying to convince Chuck to go outside for the first time. And I was watching it. I'm like, wow, like I really respect the show. Is like throwing you into the story, and you got to figure out like what's going on with the journey. And then the next scene is Mike pulling up to, to visit Kaylee and visit like his stepdaughter and everything. And then I'm like, wow, like
No pilot-itis here.
They're not dragging you in. Yeah, no pilot-itis. They're really like making you work to understand the story. I'm like, this is so bold. And about 30 minutes into that episode, my friend texted me. He's like, "Dude, shit, I gave you episode 7. Like, stop watching, stop watching." I'm like, "What do you mean? This is great." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. That's not how it starts." It's like, was he at a Cinnabon? I'm like, Cinnabon? And he's like, "Dude, turn it off, quickly, quickly."
Oh, I love it.
So, I started off a little primed in my
Oh,
experience with
Yeah,
season one.
yeah.
I had expectations. I knew there was a brother. I knew Mike was in it. But besides that, I didn't really know much beyond the fact that it existed and that Gus showed up. That's all I knew. I was like, okay, Gus Glupshitter is going to be in it, and it exists. That's all I knew.
Gus Shitter.
But it's Gus Shitter. He's not a shit. I wanted to say that, but I'm like, he's not a shit character. He's the goat. So I was like, I don't know.
This is how
He's the goat.
do quote unquote
so
glub
good.
shitters right.
Yeah. But regarding my thoughts on season 1, I thought it was really interesting how, although it runs quite parallel to Breaking Bad in terms of, you know, the characters that it has and the setting and the story, it's very much its own independent tale. And I feel like that's something that kind of permeates throughout the show, at least until season, 3 and 4, to be honest, where it's kind of its own little independent story. More so, you're having Jimmy and Mike's stories run parallel to each other, and then it only explodes and gets exacerbated out into the grand mythology of whatever the Breaking Bad universe is. But I really respected the kind of like small scale intimacy of season 1, which is something that you feel in season 2 and 3 as well. And by the time I found myself getting into the larger, narrative of what's going on and how that show evolved over time, I was kind of yearning for these simpler days, to be honest. I really, really found myself resonating with the personal drama and the personal stakes of Jimmy and his relationship with Chuck, Kim starting to get on the up and up, how Howard was involved, and then also as a Mike Super Truther, seeing that story play out and getting to explore that character in various dimensions. So from the expectation of knowing nothing and my first shot of the show being, Charles McGill digging his toes into the ground, going from that to season 1, I was thoroughly impressed, and I really, really resonated with the intimacy that show had and the maturity it had to tackle the narrative in an interesting way. Because for all intents and purposes, the Gilliganverse is Saturday morning cartoon for criminals. They are cheesy, they are funny, they are silly, but it's not a show that ever takes itself less than serious, especially in its most crucial dramatic beats. So season 1, I was like, okay, we're on the right track. There's many ways to fumble legacy stories and prequel stories, but I was like, okay, I think we're onto something good here. Also, Ray Seahorn. So that was.
We'll get there, but like, yeah. So
I'm
JJ,
saying.
similar. Again, same question to you. Like, what was kind of your experience with like? Obviously, you kind of went into it talking with us, being like, you talk about it often that that basically that it was a that you had that experience with that Breaking Bad was like one of your absolute favorite shows,
I mean, and again, this is a detriment to myself as I consume media. I have such high expectations on things, and once that high expectation is delivered, it's hard for me to kind of come down of that hill. Like, I'm going to show my age, but I watched Breaking Bad in live time. You know what I mean? I watched the finale with everybody else.
Same.
So I still remember where I sat. I still remember the TV I watched, how I felt, what I drank. For me, to me, that is a very memorable experience. I can say the same thing for Sopranos and The Lost. I watched it in live time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know I'm showing my age right now, but
no, that's awesome to be able to experience that stuff.
Humble brag.
It is an incredible thing to be able to have that, like having that with, because I never really. I guess I had that with a Good Place and some shows, but like
right.
Better Call Saul was kind of my first feeling like I just watched a show I really care about conclude.
Correct. I feel that because again, I sat in these what I would say are the greatest pieces of television. Not Lost, so I have a lot of issues with that
Fair
season finale. But
Mr. Abrams.
like watching Sopranos live and watching Breaking Bad live, and the way they conclude, like. Those moments, those feelings, I carry that with me like throughout my life. I still remember those things. So for me, like when you announce an extraction from something that I deem perfect, yeah, I'm gonna have a little bit of hesitation because I don't like to
Sure.
fix things that are not broken.
Mm.
Like, why do we need to like poke the bear? Like this perfect animal just sleeping, hibernating, existing, and I don't want to poke. I don't want to like unravel that sweater and destroy it essentially.
Yeah.
So when they announced Better Call Saul, the way the trailer framed it, almost like a slapstick comedy in a way. Maybe there was
Yeah,
marketing for me
trailer was
they
shit.
threw me off. Yeah, they threw me off a bit, and I'm like, why would I subject my mind, my heart, my soul to something that could potentially have a risk to undo what I experienced with Breaking Bad, which I consider top show literally of all time. Like Sopranos,
enough.
Breaking Bad, The Wire, like that's all like
Oh,
I know those are like corny terms, but like those shows are incredible for a reason.
Mm.
And
I
like
was
that
about to
era,
say,
I
yeah.
miss that era of television. Like I
Right.
don't think we're doing that anymore. Maybe Succession is trying
No,
to do
we're
that. I
not.
haven't seen it yet. But the way people are reacting with Succession, I'm like, could that capture those
I mean,
those
I
feelings
argue
that I
that
had?
like I argue that Better Call Saul has kind of been
Oh,
that
that's it.
sneaking thing of like this show
Sneaking.
under the radar for so long. And I'll get there to
Yeah.
being a fandom watching Ray Seahorn get snubbed every year
The,
from
yeah,
even a
mm,
nomination.
we messaged, remember
Yeah.
about that? Like it's just wild to me. To me,
Like
that
it's
hindsight
that
is
moment of
2020 now. Yeah.
exactly. Well, it's the thing of like I remember season 3 because like the issue is this show is so subtle, and there's
Correct.
a reason why people wanted Breaking Bad, and I understand, but I admire the creators to no end for deciding we're not going to do Breaking Bad. This is its own thing. Let's go with
Jesus.
it. And now
Well, there's
I'm
something-
curious with you.
But
Yeah,
can
yeah,
I
for
just
sure.
bring up
Oh,
one
please.
more point? Like, because right now I'm in my jaded, cynical era.
Yeah,
Because
Awesome. We love it.
we stand.
Some may call it you're being negative, you're being this, but like I am trying to keep my expectations in an even level because I have been let down a little too many times, and that kind of reflects through my TV watching and movie watching experience.
Sure.
So for me, when Better Call Saul was announced, like I said, I was not going to engage with it because I was terrified of it breaking the bubble. That's the
Mhm.
perfect bubble. But also, like right now, and maybe that's a reflection maybe on the like MCUs and like Star Wars and like more of like these long franchises that consist of so many different things. I'm like, we live in the age of just like nostalgia farming, tapping on the shoulders, pointing things out, like holding your hand. I don't want things to hold my hand. And I was terrified, and I should have trusted Vince Gilligan. Like that
But
is
how
my
could
own
you not
fault.
have that
But-
opinion?
But it was just a little thing in the back of my head, it just like nudging at me. I'm like, do not ruin Breaking Bad. You remember watching Breaking Bad and how you felt and how fucking perfect it was. Like, don't touch it. You know what I mean? It was different with like Dexter
Totally.
season 9 or 10, the one that after the horrible finale, I'm like, is that going to fix the pain in my heart? Not really. Let's be
Yeah.
real. But like with Better Call Saul, I was like, if this is going to be a show that's just gonna point out at like, oh look, you remember that from Breaking Bad? Do you remember that from
Precisely.
Breaking Bad? I was terrified. So it was very difficult for me to like accept it initially until I talked to two of you, and then you made the claim that it was better than Breaking Bad. Like, I respect both of you. I know how you engage with media, and I know your tastes. So when somebody that I respect and I interact with tell me a really bold statement, I'm like, this has legs. You know what I mean? This has legs. So I watched it, and I do regret not watching it live. I do
Yeah.
regret not watching it with everybody else like I did with Breaking Bad and Sopranos.
You know what
Because
though,
that
JJ?
was an experience of a lifetime.
I think that
Showing my age, I know.
no, I think that there's positives and negatives to how you went through an experience. Because I think what you talk about is something that, while Better Call Saul had an idea of what it was early on, I don't think that it really like kind of found its feet for a few episodes. And even
Just
though
like Breaking Bad. Same thing.
and even though
It takes a few episodes.
I love the opening to Better Call Saul, but I think that going into it as a Breaking Bad fan and having the first episode end with Tuco cameoing, it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, okay, that's what this
truly.
is. Okay, cool. Like, that's
True.
fine. I'm
Very
fine with it.
true.
But it's almost like oh, and then Tuco's there for the first couple of episodes, and it's like is that just what this is? So it kind of was almost like they were a little bit scared.
That was the concern I had.
Yeah. But I think that one of the things that Better Call Saul does incredibly well, and that you touched on as well, JJ, is that to its sort of detriment for me, who watched it in 2-season chunks and then off for 2 years and then 2 seasons, I would come back and go, where are we? Because it just goes. You need to be smart enough to follow the story. Like you need to be paying attention. It's not one you can just have on in the background. You need to be paying attention.
There's no hand leading. There's no pointing things out like that. Yeah. I love these types of stories that are not trying to preach to me. They're not trying to just show me what's going on, and I will make up my own mind about it. Yeah, that's it.
And so my experience going into the show was a little bit of that. Like again, I didn't really know what I was getting into. I liked Saul, but I also found him like grating and annoying sometimes. And even on like the rewatch, I'm just kind of like, oh, just shut up. Why are you this person? And that's the key part, right? Why are you this person? You have like everything is funny to you and nothing affects you. Like this is serious shit. Yeah. Like why are you making jokes about getting a hand job in a Vietnamese nail salon? Like what's going on?
He was joking?
Yeah, bro. Oh, okay. But
I wasn't paying attention.
Then meeting, like starting Better Call Saul,
the audience
and
needed to be walked through it.
So starting Better Call Saul and meeting Jimmy was somewhat shocking because it's almost like, again, you're used to this lawyer, Saul Goodman, who's kind of got everything. And you're watching Jimmy try to do that stuff and kind of fail early on, and you're like, huh. Yeah. And also very impressive to the makeup artists, honestly, because like throughout the series, you've got
throughout the entire series.
Yeah, like Ray Seahorn is beautiful,
looking like proper age the entire time.
Yeah,
like, and that was insane.
You got Ray Seahorn, who's beautiful, but like she's like over 50 years, I think 52 this year or something like that, which is phenomenal for her age. But she's playing somebody in the show who's like late 20s, early 30s, and you're like, yeah, I see it. Like I see it. And
believe
same
it.
Same for Bob Odenkirk as well. I think towards the end he definitely starts showing his age a little bit more, but like he'd had a few health concerns and scares on
also
set.
Black and white. And he had a heart attack.
Yeah. So like it makes sense, but it doesn't bug you, and it's almost like I watch that and then I go back and watch Breaking Bad, and it fits really nicely. And I think that there was concerns that it was going to be a bit of like a glup shitto fest, but at the end of the day, I think that Breaking Bad can exist as a show without Better Call Saul, and I think that somehow. Even though Better Call Saul doesn't exist without Breaking Bad, and some aspects kind of tie together, Better Call Saul is also its own like experience. Really? So like outside of the last few episodes where you might be going, oh, what happened here? But you can kind of put the pieces together. You go, he got away, he did some stupid shit, and then he went into hiding and he got busted. Like you can watch Better Call Saul as just Better Call Saul and have a complete experience. Because all of the characters...
There was a guy that you sent me, which was literally, he watched Better Call Saul before he watched Breaking Bad.
Yeah, and he talks wonderfully
about it. And he talked about it, and he was like, I love Better Call Saul without having any context of Breaking Bad.
Yeah, right. And I think that the other thing...
fascinating.
The other thing that the show does phenomenally is all of the characters that it introduces, they all have complete arcs, too. Like, you'd expect that, like, the Gus that you meet isn't the same character you meet in Breaking Bad. The... Jimmy that you meet isn't the same character you meet in Breaking Bad, and Mike isn't the same character you meet in Breaking Bad. Like they all have their own complete stories in this show that can exist in a universe without Breaking Bad. And honestly, I wish that they did, because then Mike would still be alive and I wouldn't be crying myself to sleep literally every night.
But also, I think it's a bit unfair to compare the two. They're like so narratively different, but within the same universe.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the prologue, the main story, and the epilogue. Like I call it a perfect trilogy, which is why I'm triple fisting it.
So I think that you're absolutely right, and I think that there's always going to be. I think there's always going to be preferences, which is when I talk to people like, I know people who like Breaking Bad more, and for me, I mean, you guys have seen me.
I get that.
I'm a big proponent of this online as well, where I'm like, discourse isn't I'm right and you're wrong. It's I am so happy that you love that show. I want to know why. That's all. That's all it is. Like me going, I like Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul more than Breaking Bad. Somebody come out to me and tell me it's the other way around. We might joke about it here and be like, blah blah, you're wrong.
Right.
But like in reality, if somebody comes and tells me, I'm just like, tell me. I love the show. I want to hear you talk about it. I love listening to people talk about the things they love.
And you have to take again people's personal experiences and their preferences. Like Breaking Bad is a journey to a destination, and you are starting with the destination in Better Call Saul. It's a journey versus destination type of show.
Exactly. It's
narrative. So it's going in the opposite, like the two different spectrums trying to find themselves in the middle to connect the world. And they do it
so brilliant.
And they do it without like whacking each other off and doing a dick measuring contest. They totally like stand on their
They're both
on
very
their own,
confident in their own stories.
And I want to add two things again, Vince Gilligan. I should have trusted him.
Yeah, I also got I know Neff, you got a couple points in here, but there was one thing I wanted to kind of introduce into the conversation about season 1, because this was a moment. Now, well, first off, Neff, what were your 2 points that you were going to make?
They're gone. They're literally gone.
All right, perfect. That's fine. That's what I was hoping for.
Wow.
And so now there were, but Tate was talking about Mike Ehrmantraut. I know JJ, you love Mike in this show.
Love him.
I have to say this: when I was watching the show week to week, there was one episode in season 1 that truly took my breath away. Of like, oh my god, this is, it was more like, up until this point the show was very good. It was still had that same really good writing, and it was really good there, but it wasn't what I would now consider like, okay, this is when the show showed me its potential, where it's like, okay, one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen is 5-0, the Mike backstory episode.
Oh yeah. 100%.
And the brilliance in how they do that, because this is when I talk about, when people talk about like, oh, like, I don't know, Book of Boba Fett or something like that, where they're like, oh, that, like, but how could you tell someone else's story while it's in another person's, clearly it's this other person's show. I point to this episode of being like, Jimmy's in it for one scene.
That's it.
But it's crucial, and he is vital to the plot of the episode. Like Mike, and it's very interesting for his character arc at that time, because Jimmy is still at a point where he's convinced himself, I'm going to go straight. I'm not going to do this. I'm an elder law now. I'm not going to do this. But Mike knows more than Jimmy does that he is the type of lawyer that will do the dump on the police officer by the end of this thing, and that Mike will be able to get the thing. And it's just such an interesting thing, because not only does that comment on Jimmy, it tells you so much about Mike, that even if you watch Breaking Bad, this is almost a completely different character. Like, it has all of the undertones of Mike that we knew in Breaking Bad, and it has all of, like, obviously the nuance that we got to know, but he has a melancholy that you didn't quite get in Breaking Bad. You did, but not like to the extent of him having the I broke my boy scene. Where I still am mad. Peter Dinklage won that year for Game of Thrones for season 4, and I'm like, I understand.
Was it the trial season?
Trial season. So it's like, I get it. So it's I get it. But Jonathan Banks, like, I still maintain, I'm like, he should have won for just that episode where he talks about I broke my boy.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're incredible. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like, that was just an unexpected part of the show to me. And then the fact that it took a hold of the show and basically said, you thought you were getting one Breaking Bad spinoff? Nah, motherfucker, you're getting 2. And just basically doing these dual storylines.
Yeah. Well, I want to add that
brilliant thing. I'm just curious to hear you guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, so one of the things that the show does really well when it's kind of migrating between Jimmy's and Mike's storylines, which I was so impressed by, because it's so subtle and you don't notice it until you're going and watching it again, because you're like, all of a sudden, wait, when did this become a Mike story? but it's as simple as like, Jimmy's leaving the courtroom, and he's in Mike's booth, and he's just having a conversation with Mike. And usually, as he drives off, it would just cut away. And at the end of this episode, you've got Jimmy drives away, and it just holds the shot, and you just watch Jimmy drive off, and it just stays. It's almost like he just passed the camera over to Mike and was like, "Here you go. This is for you now." And it's so subtle that, you know, he gets home,
so good.
and then there's
It's
the knock
so
on the
good.
door, and then it just cuts to black, and you're like, "Wait, what?" And then the next episode starts, and it's Mike things. And it's not until later, when Mike goes back to work and Jimmy goes past again, that Jimmy drives up, and instead of holding the shot, it follows Jimmy. And I'm just like, oh, you fuckers, I love everything.
And,
I love it.
and so Tate, I'm curious with your thoughts. Like, obviously, and I know both you and JJ have very, very fond opinions of Mike. So I'm very curious to hear your guys' thoughts. We're going into this series in particular, how that character was handled, how that thing's there. Like, I'm just curious, like, especially that episode hitting you. For me, it was when the whole show changed, where I was like, oh shit, this is the same writers as Ozymandias. This is the same, like, you know, this is these are the guys.
It is
you
a
know
travesty
what I mean?
that Ryan
Like,
Johnson never directed an episode, but
It's crazy.
I agree. That was the missed opportunity of the century. But I'm curious, Tate, your thoughts.
It's tricky, because I feel like, especially from the perspective that we're all going to be coming from, which I think you'll see throughout this episode, we're all in the same boat, and for the next however many hours or whatever beyond, we're all going to be seeing variations of the same thing. So it's going to be very difficult to try and find a thought about it that you're not going to hear echoed in other sentiments. But I think for me, Mike is a very relatable character. I think what Mike brought to Breaking Bad was Mike is a self-realized Walter. Walter lives on the mountain of his ego, where he thinks everything he's doing, oh, I'm doing this for the good of other people, oh, I'm doing this. It took Walter that whole show to realize at the end with the conversation with Skyler that he was doing it for himself, because he's a horrible and shitty human being.
It's so good.
Mike
so good.
knows. Mike is consciously aware every second he's on screen that he is doing this for Kaylee, but he is also doing this because he is so deep into the game that it is impossible for him to get out, and he might as well sink or swim. You know, it's one of those moments where this is a guy who knows where he's ending up. He's ending up in a shallow grave somewhere or another. It's just how he's going to get there. And that's what really separated Mike from other characters for me when it came to Breaking Bad. So to see him in this show, kind of seeing the origins, not the origins actually, besides 5-0, where we obviously got the backstory of what happened to his son and learning how that affected him and shaped his mentality. But for every spin-off or any supplementary material to a core franchise or a core story, it should always be like pairing a good wine with your steak dinner, right? It only enhances and brings out the better flavors
that's
that you've
good.
seen previously.
Very well said.
That's really good.
5-0 as an episode, like Keegan so aptly described, not only does it amplify Mike as a character and add more to his story and his narrative, it adds to every single moment in Breaking Bad. Every single younger figure in Mike's life is a surrogate for the son that he had.
Yep.
Be it Nacho, be it Jesse, and Mike's journey and understanding the pathos that he has and understanding that perspective and being able to really sit in that monologue and just feel, I think it's like a 5 or 6 minute monologue, just sit and feel those emotions. That's when, like we said, going from goofy Tuco, funny moments, goofy, funny Jimmy hijinks to like, remember what this is about. That episode is flawless. It is a perfect episode of television. It is so consciously aware of what the audience expects and wants from these characters in the long run. So it ropes you in. You got your funny trailers, you got your funny moments to get like your mom's friend and your dad to watch the show. And then once you're in the water, it reminds you exactly why you're here. And I think most people are big fans of Mike. I don't think there's anyone that's like
you're
a
absolutely
Mike
right.
hater.
I think he was a fan favorite from Breaking Bad.
So to take that kind of character and really give him the gravity, like, wow, they're treating one of my favorites this way. I completely trust what you're doing with every character in the show.
And I think
Yeah,
that was
that
something
episode
that
said
I
that well.
realized in my rewatch, where I was like, Mike wasn't like a huge player in Breaking Bad for like a little bit, you know, like he kind of just dipped in and
Yeah.
dipped out. Like, you know, the first time we see him,
season 5 where he really became like a
yeah, four
lead
and
with
5,
everybody.
because 5 when he becomes
Yeah.
one of the trio, but 4. I wanted to say that, adding to your point there, Tate, 5-0 recontextualizes, if you know Mike, his relationship
Yeah.
with Nacho, and then Nacho's relationship recontextualizes his relationship with Jesse. Because having seen the whole series and seeing the ways that he ultimately failed Nacho, you see how he acts towards Jesse later, and that kind of push to be like, you know, you are better than this. Like, you don't need to be doing this. You know, like, just you have it. Yeah, you've got the girl, you've got the kid. Like, just go, man. You know, and it's like that conversation is so much more painful because, similar to how he knows, like you said, he's going to end up in a shallow grave and doesn't know how he gets there. He also knows that that is the path for Walt. That is the path for Gus. That is the path for every person that stays in this business.
But it doesn't have to be
because
a
he's
path.
seen it. And I don't have a chance to save myself. I'm Mike. Yeah, I can't. I'm done. Like, my soul belongs to the devil. But this kid, if I can save him, then maybe all of that shit I did will be worth it. That's the relationship with Jesse that I see now when I watch it. And that wasn't there before. It was just kind of like, it's just an old man and an annoying kid. And he's like, fuck off, you're not good enough. But like, the context behind that is so heavy now that it's painful to watch. And then even Jesse not really having a father figure that's disappointed in him and leaning on Mike for that. And then witnessing in episodes of Breaking Bad, don't you have, like, it's the episode post the poisoning of the big bad Don Eladio, and Mike's been shot, and they're kind of like, I'm paid to fix this guy, like he can wait, he'll be fine. And it's just Jesse going like, oh my god, what the hell, this is so messed up. Those relationships just have so much more weight to them. And I remembered the previous point that I wanted to make as well, and one of them was that, funnily enough, when you go into a prequel, it's so easy to have conversations. Like, we can talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? And we can talk about how technically it's impossible to have weight or stakes because you ultimately know where these characters end up. Somehow, when you're watching Better Call Saul, you have, like, you know where they end up, but the characters are so different in Better Call Saul that you're kind of like, how do they get there? And so you do have stakes because things are happening and there's tension. And even though the tension isn't, is Saul going to live or die, or is Gus going to live or die?
Right.
Like, there are these moments where you're like, I don't know if this version of Gus can get out of it. I don't know if he's smart enough yet. I don't know if he's gone through it enough to do it. I don't know if Mike can get out of this. I don't know how Jimmy
so true.
talks himself out of this point. Well, you talk like, what, halfway through the series where you've got Jimmy going in and Chuck plays him. And he's like, we recorded it. We've got the recording of you admitting to everything. And I'm just like, how are you going to get out of this? And, you know, like, kudos to the writers. They take the most creative path to it. And, like, he gets out of it.
But never the easy path.
Yeah.
No. Like, that's what
we talk
I
about
think
this all the time.
is with because, like, the writers in Breaking Bad, like, also, if anybody is interested in, if you want to know what these writers were thinking, a lot of times we watch a show and we're like, oh, I wonder what the choices were made about it. What's so cool about this show is you can actually find out because they have the podcast, the Insider podcast.
Yeah.
Have you
it's
guys
very
listened
good.
to that?
Which has, like,
I've
what was
done a few. I've listened to a few of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And Tate, have you checked out the podcast?
Which one?
So there's there's Breaking Bad Insider and Better Call Saul Insider, and they basically have one podcast episode for every film episode, and they've got the producers there, the director, sometimes one of the actors or somebody else, like an editor on, and they just talk about the episode. And, like, I remember talking with you,
but, like, in
about
a much detailed way than I've heard other podcasts.
Exactly.
do.
And it's from a production standpoint too, which is really interesting. And I remember talking to you about it, Kay, because we would sit here and we'd be questioning, like, is it that deep? Is it what we were thinking? And then you listen to the podcast episode and I was like, oh, I was right. oh, that was intentional.
It was deeper.
And it's like,
it was deeper than you and I both were thinking.
yeah,
Like,
and it's
it
that
was this
feeling,
thing,
that
like,
understanding that this show is like a slow game of chess, and like any chess player, they were 1,000 steps ahead of us the whole time, and they were planting seeds for things that would come up later throughout the whole damn series.
and the best example of that to me is the final season, because they literally have said one of my favorite things, which is they would put stuff in this opening montage, which I will also say, I've now watched a lot of finales, like final seasons to shows. Obviously not ones that I was watching air live, but it has single-handedly the best cold open of a final season I have ever.
Oh, yeah.
Something that conveys the momentum of what this means to be a final season, and basically being like, we know you wanted a black and white. You know we put Saul in a really interesting position. You know, we know you want it, but we're gonna make you wait for it, you sons of bitches.
Yeah.
And just go like, but then the fact of they also show the in-between time. It's between black and white and color. Like, it's that's where this is placed, because it's this kind of like reminder of where we go. But then it's also what they do so well is that time machine book is in that that montage. Like the stuff that's like the post-it notes are in that montage. The like, you know, the stuff that you wouldn't even, in my mind, you wouldn't even think of, like when you're watching it, you're looking at all of the Breaking Bad Easter eggs, the previous season Easter eggs.
Yeah.
That you don't know that they're already planting stuff that when you watch it again, you're going to realize we already planted this shit from like later on down the line. And then it also ends with, as you were talking about, Tate, with like, remember what this show is, which I thought it had the best visual metaphor of how I felt about this show for years, is here's the accoutrements of Easter eggs and all of this stuff, but nobody notices the little cork that falls out of the desk that's there, and it'll probably just go in that gutter.
Yeah.
No one is going to remember it. None of these movers know the significance of what that represents. I'm tearing up just thinking about it, because what that simple image conveyed of just simply being like, it's the little shit that you have with your partner or a best friend, the little thing that's like, why do you hold on to this dumb trinket? It's like, because it's from them. And it's this thing that it's almost like even a representative of Saul, that he had tucked that so far deep away that it took someone else just tossing stuff around to reveal that not only did he hold on to it all these years, but it was in his desk. Like, and fuck, like that's what I feel about what this show is, like what it does so well with Easter eggs and making shit matter. And like, that's when I talk about like prequels. It's like, what are you talking about? That because we know a character doesn't die, that it can't be interesting. Because exactly, so I'm like, watch this show if you honestly believe that. If you honestly have not seen a show do it well, watch this, because there's so much things worse than death, and that's what this show does.
But like, when that mindset never made sense to me. How are you watching any sort of adapted work, like, you know what I mean, any work that's been adapted from original material that has a complete story? Are you not going to engage with it? Are you not going to feel the stakes on screen? Like, to me, I think it's a silly way of consuming television, because again, you have to look at what this is versus Breaking Bad, the Destination versus Journey. But also, like Better Call Saul, it's like, oh, let me introduce you an array of these different characters that are going to fill Saul Goodman's life, that you're going to learn to care about, just as you learn to care about, you know, Mike and Jane and all of these other characters within that universe. So to me, not only does it not like tug on your nostalgia strings to pull on glove shitos and fan services and like remind you constantly, but the way it frames its new characters within its universe, to me, that is the best part. Like, we have an idea what happens with Saul, you know what I mean? Not past, you know, being a manager at a Cinnabon, but you know what I mean? Like, you kind of have an idea where you can kind of guess.
Well,
correct.
I think that,
like, and to me, that's fine, as long as you journey to that in a way
Yeah.
that it's earned. And
Yeah.
that ending, all of these characters earn their end at the end of the series.
For
You know what I
better
mean?
and
Like
for worse.
for better or for worse. And it feels like to me, especially towards the end, like in a jail when Kim and Saul are smoking their final cigarette, the way it's framed, things are not happening to the characters. It's literally them just reflecting on their own actions.
Yeah.
This is what we've done. This is the culmination of everything that we have done. Like
Yeah.
again, a lot of shows like to like, I don't want to say the word manipulate, but like kind of tug at you emotionally and intellectually by having things happen to the character constantly. But in like Breaking Bad and in Better Call Saul, like your characters, these people are doing things to the story, and you have to live with the weight of their choices constantly. You know what I mean? So I feel like it
Yeah.
accomplishes. I feel like
There's
it
a lot
accomplishes
of-
the same thing in Breaking Bad.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like what's the word? Like visual moments that tie those things together. Like again, that last
Correct.
cigarette with Kim
With
and
Kim?
Jimmy is
It's a mirror of the first.
it's the exactly right. It's like it's and you're right. Just in that shot, similar to like the Zafiro cork.
Yeah.
It is
Yep.
kind of tying everything back. And I think that there's something really interesting to be said about what you were saying before, JJ, around how people kind of consume media, and like the idea that like once there's a story that the mind is kind of closed to that story, and it's like trying to expand on it. It can be difficult because some people aren't necessarily open-minded. They go, I want this person to be what I thought they were. I'm not really open to how they got to what they became. And there's a really interesting parallel that can be brought between that and The Last Jedi in how people reacted
God
to
damn it.
I love you.
Luke.
I just want to put that out there.
Because you can look at somebody
This is
like
why
Luke
we're
Skywalker.
friends. This is why we're friends.
You can look at somebody like Luke Skywalker and the place that he finds himself in The Last
Truly.
Jedi, and you can go genuinely. You can go, that's not my Luke. Like, I don't know who this guy is, and that can be your story. Or the other part is you can go, the character that I love has been broken, and I can see that he's broken, and I want to know how he got there. And I'm so curious as to the horrible things that happened to him over the last 30 years that got him from that point to this point. And that's
If I may,
something
Matt,
that
and then once you're ready,
yeah, and that's something
Like,
that Better Call Saul does really well, because when you are introduced to these characters, you're like, Gus is a little bitch at the start. Like, I don't know, he's just like
He's almost cartoonish in
He's
here.
so
There's like
cute.
a cartoonish villainy that surrounds him until he
Exactly.
has that moment when he's trying to like almost like move on from his past lover and have like a maybe even a date with I can't remember the
Yeah.
character. They were drinking the
Yeah.
wine, and I'm like, you almost felt like maybe I could have something with this person. You know what I mean? Maybe I can. Let's go on a date. And then
crosses
he
my
like,
man.
it crossed his mind. Like that was the first time I thought of that character as non-cartoonish. Because I mean, Giancarlo Esposito is amazing. He portrays him in a way I think Gus Fring should be portrayed. He is very.
but it's a
sort of-
villain. Like
It's a villain. He should be off-putting to you as a person. And I think Vince Gilligan, I think he admitted that he made Walter White a little too
Likable.
empathy drawing, like a little too likable. So I think he's maybe didn't want to fall into that same trap with Gus
Yeah.
Fring. We still
And I-
need to frame a killer drug cartel leader as a bad person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but that was the first time. But he gives you like a little thing. Here's
Yeah.
Gus considering a date with somebody that's not his
one of
lover
my
that was
favorite
killed.
scenes.
And it's
I
also one of those
fucking
ones
love that wine moment. It is one of my
Yeah.
favorite moments in the entire series.
And it's one of those ones that also, like, I love the dynamic between those two characters. Like, it's so beautiful. And you're right,
Yes.
Giancarlo plays it
Yes.
phenomenally. But it also, like,
Phenomenal.
it's kind of subtle, too. Because it's like,
Oh.
at a
Oh, it's
glance,
incredibly
if you
subtle.
don't go into that with the kind of headcanon that, that Gus is probably queer, like, it's like,
Probably. They kind of heavily implied.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
no.
this-
I think they implied
especially
that he's
they
very
doubled-
queer.
They doubled down on it in Better Call Saul. Like in
Yeah.
Breaking Bad, it's like, is he my partner? Is it like a best friend? It's like a little bit
Yeah.
more like open
I-
there. They
I
kind
genuinely
of
thought it
doubled
was
down.
a lover, even in Breaking Bad. When I was
Yeah.
My
watching it,
dad
to
caught
me
that.
came
I
off as
didn't think
lover.
that.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
my-
right.
But to be
I
fair-
thought I did, yeah.
to be fair, Kay, you were hiding a part of yourself at that point. So you were like, nobody's
For
gay, 'cause it's
sure.
wrong.
For sure. Like absolutely.
Well, that's
Um,
fair. That, yeah.
yeah.
But,
So,
like, when was
I saw
younger,
it as
I watched
well.
That, and then that was
Yeah, and I think that's really beautiful how they portray Gus. And then the other part is how
I love it.
we kind of watch him come into his own through little moments.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
the things that don't seem to affect him because he's so calm and collected in Breaking Bad are what's the word? Almost traumatizing to him. In these moments that like in an unnatural way, because you might see, for example, let's hypothetically tie back to Star Wars for a second. Like you've got Force Awakens and shit happening, and Kylo going, "I'm so mad, I want to beat up the wall with my lightsaber." Grr, right? You've got that, and then you have Gus, who is so terrified of something happening to him. You know, somebody's hunting him, somebody's alive, that all he can do, because he has no control over the situation, is take complete control over something he does have. And what does he do? He destroys Lyle. He destroys.
Well, that's not the same. It's not the exact same moment, but like, poor Lyle. At Celebration,
that was so unnerving. That was a horror movie moment.
I kid you not. At Celebration, I was standing in line for the Giancarlo thing. Somebody wore a Lyle cosplay.
No.
And I was in line, so I couldn't leave, but I was like, I want to get a picture with
That's
Lyle.
Amazing. Yeah, but I suppose the point was that like, yeah,
I didn't get it because I couldn't leave the line, but I was like, I saw
right,
it
because you were in line.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you've got that moment in season, I think it's 5, where there's a Lyle moment, which like, do the fryer again, do it again, do it again, do it again, and like the way that he is of almost being like, you know what? Me getting you to do it isn't actually enough control of the situation. I need to do it myself. Like, kudos to Lyle for being like, come on, I got this. But like watching him almost start to fall apart and become a bit crazy, and especially through season 6 that happens as well, and coming back to when Mike goes to find him and he's like, what are you doing, man? He's just scrubbing a bathtub, and it's just like he needs control and he doesn't have control, and it's not until he clears off everything and finalizes Better Call Saul that he actually has enough control over his entire like what's the word, like everything, his entire experience, that he can actually be the person that he is in Breaking Bad. Like, and again, you watch just Breaking Bad, cool villain. You watch Better Call Saul, you're like, that's not Gus, how's he gonna become Gus? And then he does, and you're like, oh shit, okay,
that's how.
And you know
what? Tony Dalton as Lalo and awaken my sexual awakening. Now here's the thing. So we're gonna change. We'll get there.
I just want to add one more thing about Gus and the whole cleaning thing. Like, to me, it felt like this is again person losing control. His life is sort of a mess, and a lot of people kind of tend to translate that into extreme hygiene or extreme cleanliness, where they're trying to literally cleanse their own life, cleanse their own mess by making sure that tub is scrubbed with fucking inch of its life. Like, I have never felt more dread on my heart. I felt heavy. I don't feel heavy often in a lot of stories than when that poor kid was cleaning those ovens and the grease traps, and I was like I am waiting for him to snap and literally kill him. Like I was waiting for that, and I'm glad the show didn't go that way. It was just building dread to you by building Gus's character. So I love his character. I think he's a little cartoonish, but he's fucking terrifying.
But it's like,
and we don't have that enough.
Do it there. Yeah,
just do it.
He truly just has that kind of. Is similar to that again. I was talking. You and I talk about Tywin Lannister. It's a similar vibe to that. Like idea. Like, it's on the border of cartoonish, but it's done just so well that I'm like, one step either way. This is a mustache twirly villain. But one thing I want to introduce, because obviously we're talking a lot about season 6 and season 1. One thing I want to introduce. I asked you guys a question early on, and I feel like this is a good way to kind of cover a good map of the seasons. I'm curious for you guys. There was a season for me, and that's where this question comes from. Is there was a season for me where for a while I was watching a Breaking Bad spinoff. And I was super excited for all the lore connections, all the ways it was connected to the universe. But then there was a season that I realized I cared more about the original plots that were happening here than its connection to Breaking Bad. And I realized I started loving this show a lot more for itself rather than the justice it was doing to this other show.
Yeah.
And I was curious for you guys, was there a season? And if so, what season was it for you guys that did that for you, like with this show?
Well,
like just or one that you point to as like the key season for you.
Tate, do you have any thoughts there, my brother? Great thought.
On what season I thought was like spoke to me the most out of all of it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I never really thought of the show in like divided into seasons. To
I
be honest,
agree. Same
to
with
me,
me.
it's one
Moments.
continuous narrative that's going on. The seasons is just for us, so we can categorize and
Sure.
define, and we can do marketing and releasing. So I unfortunately don't think of it in that way. But if there was a through line or a narrative
Sure.
that really carried me through and spoke to me more than obviously all the exciting gusts and all that other Salamanca stuff,
Mhm.
was just the Chuck and Jimmy dynamic. To be
Oh,
honest, that to me
that's
is the
it.
best part of the show, throughout what permeates throughout, and even with Chuck's eventual death midway through the show, it is still inherently the through line for Jimmy's narrative from the moment go up until the final scene in the show. It is all about Chuck. It is all about Jimmy and Chuck. And that relationship, which you can view from so many different perspectives, like a prism, you can really look into it and interpret all the different perspectives and stuff, because it is undoubtedly such a complex and nuanced relationship. As much as there is a person who is wrong, there's that person is also right. And as much as they prey on each other and their own aspects that are negative and they bring the worst out in each other, there's also the side where they want to bring out the best in each other. But they are so drawn to antagonizing and attacking that whenever there's that glimmer of hope, it's always just snuffed out. So it's a self-perpetuating cycle, and seeing that evolve and change, and how kind of like throwing a stone into the water, you know, how it ripples and affects the world around them and the characters around them, and how that gets drawn in. That whole destructive relationship that Jimmy had with Chuck is the reason that Walter White is dead in a boiler room at the end of Breaking Bad. It's
Yep.
the reason that Jesse has to go to Alaska. It's the reason that all the characters are at the space that they're in. So for me, as so much fun as it is to see Mike do crazy cocaine shoe shooting to screw over the Salamancas, or see
Oh my God, yeah.
all the
So
epic
good.
Gus moments and all the epic the drama of the crime families. At the end of the day, I don't know. I never thought I'd come to the point where I'd say I felt like I wanted to fast forward through those moments to get back to Jimmy and Chuck. I wanted to see how that was gonna go.
I
And
feel that.
unfortunately, it has been memed to death and in many funny memes, but that the chicanery speech is really just the culmination of that entire dynamic. And again, if you have been ruined by the memes, I'm sorry, you're never going to get that experience that I had watching that scene blind, just sitting there shaking like, wow. But that for me,
Same.
if I could put that into a box and call it a season of Jimmy's life, that is the season that spoke to me the most. That whole dynamic.
Kind of culminating. I mean, obviously culminating the whole thing, but chicanery kind of being like this. It's an emblematic episode of that whole fucking
Yeah.
thing. Because
Absolutely.
mine was similar. I'll just go into briefly kind of what mine was, just because it's a quick answer to it. Because mine piggybacks off of yours. I was watching the show, and as it was happening live, again, I was very into this whole thing. But then season 4 comes along, and for me, it was divided into seasons because I had to wait years, maybe even years, for the next one. So
Yeah.
that's why my brain will think about it that way.
And Zane has
so-
just joined us in chat as well, just saying, hey, how you doing, Zane? We've got
Oh,
the
good to
boys.
see
We're
you,
talking
Zane.
Better Call Saul, which I think you've seen as well, haven't you, dude? But you were saying, Kay?
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
and so with it, mine was season 4 because Mike's storyline was always very interesting to me. Maybe it was because I just gravitated towards that character. I was so interested in all of the connections, like the cousins coming back. I was like, oh cool, I get more of these guys. Like I also started to really like Nacho, and I was like, okay, I'm really digging that side of it. But I like the Jimmy stuff. It just was not always my favorite. And then it's the first episode of season 4. And not only is it the first time that there's kind of like, or like the second time that there's dialogue, but it was also the thing of like, it's picking up after him, you know, in black and white, passing out like at the Cinnabon. And it's like that whole tension filled thing of your social security numbers not going through. And it's that moment of like, oh shit, I hit an O instead of a 0. Like that whole
Yeah,
thing.
genius,
But like the
genius.
tension
Yeah,
there
tension.
is so good. And it was like, but the whole thing was it like, and then leading up to the point where it's like that scene with Howard being like, I think he did it because of me, and him crying. And then Jimmy, who I feel like more or less up until that point in the show, we had always kind of knew where Jimmy's head was at, more or less. Like we may agree or disagree with what he did, but we could always kind of see where it came from, right?
Yeah.
Then he says, well, Howard, it looks like that's your cross to bear. And that blew my mind when I heard that like come out. I don't know why. It was this simple phrase of just going like, oh, you're deeply broken. Like you have not come to understand and now having gone through grief, I completely understand and appreciate that feeling. And then that whole journey that they took that made Jimmy so self-destructive, it really brought out all those worst qualities, but it made complete sense. It made sense why his stuff would ramp up, because Chuck is like, who gives a fuck? You know, Chuck is like, you know, basically like Chuck didn't want anything to do with me. He didn't care about me. Who gives a fuck what I do? My words mean nothing now. To the point where Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould take this moment and they have this thing happen, which blows my mind every time. It's like you get to the end of that season and they do it to you as the audience member, where you hear him at the courtroom and he's talking and you hear him talk about Chuck and it's so sincere. And you do feel like, oh, there's a part of this that's truth. Like you see Kim's reaction to this, you see all this, and you're like, oh wow, yeah, like no, he's finally opening up about it. And then he gets to that moment of being like, oh, I'm so glad they fell for it. What a bunch of assholes.
Kim's reaction in that moment was Emmy worthy.
It was
crazy.
us. And it was me in that moment going, the fuck? No, you didn't learn that was all fake?
That was
it was
nuts.
where, like, as Naf said, like, it was when Jimmy finally learned to do the shit that he'll do in Breaking Bad. It was where he learned that he's capable of basically cutting off that guilt, cutting off that shame, and just being like, yeah, they fucking fell for it. Which was also... Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to...
No, that was it. That was my thoughts. And then also introduces Lalo.
I just want to Yeah, that's a whole thing. Yeah, but I want to piggyback off of like Chuck and Jimmy's relationship. Like it literally opens up with "You're not a real lawyer." Now, like that's his entire thing. Like with Chuck, with Jimmy, like that was a driving force for Jimmy. And then he ends up like fucking outsmarting a room full of prosecutors from 300 years on to 7 because they know he's gonna charm the shit out of the jury. Like, if that's not the greatest fucking lawyer in the history move, literally, literally from a fuck you to the grave of Chuck, who treated him like shit his entire life. He never gave him a break, not once. And when they almost had a moment, Chuck just could not fucking let go of his preconceived notions about his troubled young brother. You know what I mean? Like that relationship bothered the fuck out of me in the best possible way. Like he never ever gave him a chance. He tricked him. He recorded him without his consent. He just put him in places where he had no place to be anything else than Saul Goodman. And I'm like, you're not a real lawyer. Well, I'm gonna fucking outsmart a room full of prosecutors from like what 300 years they were trying to give him down to 7. And the only reason he got life is because he wanted it. Worked. And the only reason he got 86 is because he wanted. I'm like, correct, because of Kim. He's like, I'm ready to atone. She's trying to atone. Maybe I can atone.
Yeah, it's a good.
I want to add to that.
I think
you go first, Tate, and then I'll add my point.
No, go.
Okay, yeah, sure, thanks. But I was gonna say that there is something about, and Kay and I have talked about this at length, and part of me feels like somehow Walter's story is just like a little incomplete. And hear me out for a second, right? Stay with me. So, it is complete in terms of like how he comes to terms with things with his family, and I like how he tied up the knot with Skylar, and it's like you go, okay, I understand this character, and I think finally we're seeing the real Walter. But there's something about him just dying that feels like you didn't get what was coming to you. Like you lucked out. Like you got to die, you know, for lack of a better term. And there's something
You don't have
about
to live with the consequences.
exactly. There's something about Saul in that moment changing from I'm getting away with it again to, you know what? Fuck this. I'm done. Like I want to live my truth, my authentic. I'm not playing this character anymore. I'm living my true, authentic self. I'm taking accountability for all the mistakes I made and all the evil things that I did. And I'm fucking proud of it because that's the person that I am, and he wouldn't have been able to do it without me. But at the same time, I'm aware that I did the wrong thing and I'm ready to atone. And that is like, it tastes so good. It's so much more satisfying than Walt dying, if I do say so myself.
But
I think
you know what?
what
I'll
comes
push.
from that-
Yeah.
No, go.
No, go ahead. No, please.
Tate,
you
you've
had
been
a
cut off
thought.
twice.
Go.
Say something.
Tate, come on.
It all depends on whether you think Walter was being genuine in that final episode or not. How much of it do you think was him trying to be like, oh, I'm trying to bring closure. I'm trying to trying to reassure people, which I can definitely see that angle. But how much of it is Walter just being like, I could do with some pity points right now. I'm feeling. I buy it. I buy his journey.
Yeah.
I buy him.
But I think there is a discussion to be had there. That's really interesting, Tate. I really like that point.
Well, I mean, you know, Walter's forever going to be remembered by everyone on the planet.
That's
as
it.
The crime kingpin who ran Albuquerque.
Heisenberg. Heisenberg.
He's forever going to be remembered that in life
Heisenberg.
or death, no matter what he does. Jimmy will forever be remembered by one person as a guy who changed.
And you know
That's
what?
the difference.
Correct. And
Walter
Heisenberg.
didn't-
Correct.
Walter never deserved a satisfying ending. He deserved dying in the shallow grave, getting for the action, the consequences of his own actions.
I agree.
Very good.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
all
it's
of
like-
the audience wants Walter White to finally admit the crux of what and who he is or what he has become. And he does that. To me, that makes it very satisfying. Whether he's shot up by 15 guns or in prison, it doesn't matter.
I remember
He
there was
finally
a
admitted.
Was admitting it.
There
His
was-
ending was with Skylar. That is a true
Yeah.
ending. The rest is just
fluff.
putting him
Yeah.
literally just not I don't metaphorically burying the character so you cannot touch it anymore.
Yeah.
The story is done, but he ended his journey in the conversation with Skylar. To me, that was the end of it. The
That's
rest is
beautiful.
just cherry on the cake.
Yeah.
So for
Which is also
right.
why I like the addition that they added in Better Call Saul to show a little bit more into Walt, of having that moment of which, again, you're talking about icing on the cake. Talk about re-including a main iconic character and having it make sense for your show. Yeah, twice. And being able to do two scenes, which I would argue is possibly even the best scenes for those characters. Like, arguably, those could be like in the conversation of like, this is a like the one for me still will always be the Jesse Kim scene.
Is he any good?
Jesse, is he any good? This guy of yours, is he any good? And then it's the same line
Oh
that
my
has
God.
stuck with me since it happened.
I can't see it.
It's her saying, "When I knew him, he was."
Mm.
Was one of the best fucking lines I have
That line.
ever heard to convey so fucking much in a way that didn't feel too melodramatic
Well,
to say to someone out of
No.
context, where you would just kind of go as a person, just go, okay, like,
Yeah.
like, you know.
But I think that there's something really interesting about how, and you and I have talked about this as well, Kay. And there's a couple of things I want to say, because one is I remember coming across a video essay on YouTube a little while back, and I think I may have sent it to you too, Kay. But it was just somebody analyzing the moments in which Jimmy's lying and the moments in which he's telling the truth. And it was really interesting, some of the stuff they talked about, how the actual difference in how Bob Odenkirk acts those sequences, like the things that he does, like touch his hair or touch his nose, that you go, he's lying. And if you go back and watch it knowing that, it's like, oh, cheeky. And that's huge, that kind of stuff. But the other thing that I was thinking was about how I think the thought is actually gone. Don't mind me, the
you're
ADHD
talking about,
meds
like,
haven't
what-
kicked in yet.
Fair
But
enough.
yeah, but I do
You're
really
asking,
like
so.
that aspect of it. Like I thought that was really interesting. And I remember now. And it had to do with how Jimmy and Walt's characters are like similar in kind of what they're trying to achieve. I mean, you've got something like, for example, Walt played goody two shoes for so long and was like, it didn't do anything for me, and he hates himself for it, and he resents everyone for, it's an ego driven thing, right? And you feel the ego, and especially rewatching. I think the first time I watched it, I was like, I love Walt, I hate Skylar, this sucks. The rewatch, I was like,
introspective is
ooh.
crazy.
I was like, I do not like Walt. Scenes with Walt, I'm like, these are uncomfortable for me to watch. I genuinely, he's a horrible person. And it's crazy having that change. But there's something about how Jimmy's portrayed in which, particularly early in the series, and like, I know he still made the decision to do the wrong thing, but there's a part of him actually trying for a long time to prove to his brother that I can do it the right way. And he's trying so hard, and the world is beating him down, and then he gets a taste of, if I do the wrong thing, things come easily to me. And of course, it's the Anakin Skywalker problem. It's like, I tried to do the right thing, they shat on me, I do the wrong thing, I get everything I wanted instantly. I'm done. I'm in. At a certain point, you can't just go, oh, the world was hard on him, so he had to be evil. No, he made the choice. But every time he tried to do the right thing, he got slapped in the face. Yeah, and there's something devastating about that story of going, like, for him to actually win.
But I'm curious with you guys.
What if he got the job? What if he actually got job with Chuck? And been like a lawyer and
what's
partner.
Crazy?
Like, how does that change? You know what I mean? Like,
well,
think
I'll
about
tell you what.
I'll
tell you what. Hank would probably still be alive. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Much.
Well, I think that like Saul is also.
I mostly care about Hank and not Gomez, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I see how it is. Yeah. And he actually has a Mexican co-host as well. So like, I don't know.
Make those lights red, Keegan. Why don't you?
Well, like, here's the thing. I gotta look out for myself in this Hank Gomi relationship, Naf. That's what I gotta look out for.
But
I love Hank. He annoys the shit out of me, but I love that character so much.
I'm
That
just
was
saying
something
that
that-
Hank had a final stand.
Over.
Gomi went out like a punk. That's all I'm saying. Like, but like, just.
there is also something about the opening of
it's
that
not.
episode, that just is obviously the episode with Hank and Gomi
Which
dying,
episode?
Ozymandias,
Oh, yeah.
and how it opens with the flashback and then just
Yeah.
black.
Oh,
and
you're
just,
right,
And
yeah.
you just hear everything, and then it cuts in, and it's just like Gomi's body, and you're just like, oh,
Fuck.
oh,
Yeah,
like,
that hurt a
and
lot.
again,
That
these are
episode
things.
hurt me so bad when I watched it the first time. I was just like,
This is the
I'm in pain.
brilliance. It's the brilliance of Ryan Johnson. It's like, and you hear them talk
Correct.
about it on the podcast too. I think there was a video I sent you recently where it was like something so subtle, like Walt falling over, and as his
the
head
head thing.
touches the dirt, the ground cracks beneath him. That was a prop that Ryan Johnson was like, can we have the ground crack beneath him? So they went off, made a little prop, and with a little remote control, when his head touches the ground, they click it, and it like basically disintegrates the ground, and it cracks beneath him. It's an intentional visual flair. My Google Home's going off. But it's an intentional visual flair that emphasizes that his universe is about to crumble. Like, just delicious, genius,
Well, and
genius.
Tate, I want to ask you a question with that regard, like
Uh-oh.
more to.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So, what was the
On the spot.
caliber of the gun that Mike got from the guy?
The caliber of the gun that Mike got was a.
You're not a real fan. Anyway,
Um,
JJ. But
point.
like, but Tate, but in all seriousness, one thing I wanna.
Would have been me.
I would. Fair enough. But
Let me
I
be
would.
professional.
I would. Like, what I am curious about with like the Jimmy dynamic, one of the characters that we have, shockingly, two characters that I feel like we need to talk about that we haven't yet, is that's beautiful. That Funko
I love
Pop
it.
is incredible.
It's amazing.
That is.
The best part is that his glasses are crooked as well.
Put it to camera.
Oh my god.
Put it to camera.
Oh my god.
That's
Little enemies.
that is
I love that.
insane.
I love that.
I will hunt that down. That will be mine.
Yeah,
I'll
I
find
If
agree.
you guys are listening on Spotify, Tate has a pop vinyl of Walt from
Yes.
the pilot of Breaking Bad, where he's standing in his tidy whities with a gun. It's beautiful.
It's amazing. And cricket glasses.
I bring a toy. I bring a toy to every podcast, man. You know how it is.
Fair enough.
Sorry,
Oh,
you were
I'm
saying
gonna-
something
I'm
very
gonna-
professional.
So, being professional as I am, like what I wanted to ask you, like truly, is that there are 3 characters I feel like we need to talk about that we haven't yet, which is what happened.
It's like
Right.
it's like $140. Holy fuck!
Do it.
Yeah, it's really
So
great.
sorry.
I got this.
Oh
I got
my
this at a garage
God.
sale. Some lady was giving away a free box of toys that a kid didn't play
Shut
with, and I
the
got like
Fuck up.
30 Funkos. So I've got I got Walter and his like tidy whities. I've got Hank and I've got Jesse as well.
Fuck. God damn.
Oh my God.
So
Keegan has a really good point.
here we go. 3
I'm so
people that we
sorry.
have not talked
I'm
about
so
yet in this
sorry.
podcast. So
It's
like,
Lalo.
we have I mean, well, actually now there's 4. But we like Lalo actually wasn't on this list because I was just gonna take him for myself. But but Lalo,
Riz.
Howard Hamlin, and Nacho,
Oh, my
Awesome.
heart.
and we have not talked about Kim Wexler enough yet.
Also me.
Correct.
So, a question. I just put together. You were saying me to all of those, and so like, but my
That's
question.
That's
to you-
selfish. That's selfish. You can't claim all
You
of it.
can't
You have to
claim
claim
all of
one.
Yeah.
Claim
you
one.
Get one.
You get one.
That's
Who
your
you claiming?
question.
Okay. I'm literally Mike, dude. Like I don't know what to tell you. He's literally me.
He's literally me.
Should we
I
should we be
watched it and-
scared?
Don't cross me.
Nate's already taken his first bribe. Is basically the thing. But like, but so Tate,
Go
I'm
ahead.
curious with Kim in your watch.
Right.
Because Kim was a very interesting thing. Because watching it, week to week, you slowly saw her getting involved in the thing. But because it was a bit again between each episode and things like that, I didn't know how involved in the story she was going to get. And then it was very clear that she is an integral part of the show.
Oh
That
yeah.
she is truly became like I think a lot of people were saying this towards the finale. I think all of us, like when we were actually going to the final season, was going, well, fuck what's happening with Jimmy. Please tell me to God Kim's okay. Please tell me that she's okay. And I'm just
He
curious
was
for
not.
all of
In
you
fact,
guys.
he was okay.
Do you guys remember like private messages between us with like everybody like about my thoughts on Kim? I'm like, she's not in Breaking Bad, so it's either suicide or she gets whacked. Like I was
And
terrified.
somehow it's
worse.
It's
worse.
worse. Like, how was it worse than suicide and being in a
Yup.
ditch?
I think
Yup.
that Kim's
Motherfucker.
story.
Oh my, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a lot of pain there, and I think that most of us have experienced going through something where you're the bad guy. You feel like the bad guy, and you kind of punish yourself post that. And watching
Yeah.
Kim in the Waterworks episode specifically punish herself for an hour
Essentially.
it's devastating. And especially
God.
to be told in a way that is so like human and real, and that everyone has experienced. You go through like crappy things, and then
But
you beat
normal.
yourself up for it,
Yeah.
and you punish yourself and all of these things. It's like watching her go through that process of like healing, but kind of not, like just really slowly and really stuck in that phase. It's not until the final episode where she is finally comfortable enough to dip her toes back into something that she loves that it's like, yeah, I'm so
Well,
proud
yeah,
of you.
like that was like not to jump in there, but like the thing for me that I got to that episode when you see her start off, and I'm like I feel like the writers literally went, what is the like most boring job we can think of? Like, what's the most claw your eyes out corporate job we can give this woman? And then the wardrobe department going, she's
That's
always
it.
been in these stunning like suits and
Suits.
things like that, and like she always looks
Power
so put together.
suits, yeah.
And it's like her hair going to like brunette instead of blonde. So look out, Johnny, you'll like it. But like
Beat me by
it's
a
like,
second.
but,
I wish Kim Wexler would beat me for a second.
Ayo.
Well, I mean, that's about how long you're gonna
You
last.
good,
for.
man? You
But
good?
that's like
Just
that's,
thirsty, bro.
But the
Average size can.
Yeah. I think that
But,
you've got things like
yeah.
also the most, for lack of a better word, revolting sex scene ever put to screen. I was like,
how do you convey she did not come in the bet in like a
That
scene
was-
without like that being like, how did you convey the most least pleasurable like the most. I feel like I'm watching somebody get raped, except this is all consensual. Like, how do I feel like I am just so
Like there's a part of her brain that's just switched off.
But it's not even that. It's the mediocrity of it.
That's it. It's worse. It's like
it's the living a mediocre life in a mediocre job with a mediocre house, mediocre fashion and wardrobe, mediocre sex, mediocre everything.
Yeah.
It's
It's
death
the
of
warm
soul.
place or the
That's
medium place.
literally life. It's meaningless.
also,
It is.
if I'm not mistaken, it's the only sex scene in the Gilligan-verse as well. They're explicitly shown.
Yes.
Besides
Yeah.
Skylar's unenthusiastic hand job in the Breaking Bad premiere, it is the only sex scene.
Don't
It's, like,
Jane
explicitly
and-
shown.
Don't
They
Jane
have,
and
like-
Jess have a sex scene?
well, they
have,
always
like-
have.
I think they have
one,
those "we're gonna kiss and then cut away" kind of vibe.
Ah,
always
yep,
like a
This is
got
like
cutaway.
the first,
Yeah.
like, not
But-
cut away. Like, you're gonna see this man go, yup. For, like,
And
a
you know-
minute and a half.
But I have to admit, I do have to admit, there's like real chemistry between Jimmy and Kim.
It's one of the
You-
best,
Oh, yeah.
like
I
honest
really enjoyed it.
relationships.
It's honest. It
This-
feels real. Like to me, it felt real. I felt like especially when they're like smoking outside together before they actually hook up. Like you can feel there's a little bit of tension.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
they have history. You know what? Like I go on tirades and I get very critical about men that write women. Like it's just never captured in a way that I obviously you can never experience that because you're not a woman. But
Excuse
like
me?
Vince Gilligan is 2 out of 2 right now
Yeah.
with Skylar.
Well, I think the big
and,
part-
and with Kim Wexler.
well, keeping in mind that his writing
It's a writer's
team,
room. Yeah.
a lot of them are
Correct.
women.
Mm.
A lot
That's
of them
true.
are
That is true. Right.
are
Yeah.
women. Also, like
And
again,
you've got
a
Michelle
lot of
McLaren who
queer
comes
presented-
back and directs multiple episodes. And she's
You're
known
right.
for,
You're right.
like, yeah.
Deborah
like,
Chow has directed episodes.
yeah. dude.
Any prominent female character that doesn't feel patronizing, like it's trying to teach me something or trying to like, oh, show me. I don't. Just tell me
We support
Yeah,
who
women.
you
yeah.
are. What are you?
I think
you know what I
this-
mean. Like and these shows accomplish that with Skylar and with Kim
She's so
Wexler being
complex,
two
like the-
prominent women.
They create these complex characters that are like Kim Wexler is one of my favorite characters in all the fiction.
She's the reason why I stuck with the show.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
wasn't sure what the show was gonna do with this person. I'm like, is this gonna be like a rah 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 girl power thing? Oh, I'm trying to make it in a corporate. I'm like, wait
Yeah.
a minute, don't do this to me. I know what you, if you're this is what you're doing. I'm probably gonna be dipping out.
Yeah.
That again, the show does the best possible thing and flips that character into something very complex. And then she is wearing a Kansas City Royals t-shirt,
Oh, yep.
doing a Jimmy Gunn thing, and I'm like, okay, all right. She's kind of getting
I'm
off
scared.
on
I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
terrifies me, and I'm like, she's finding thrill in things that are not,
Well,
and
There
I'm
were
like, okay,
moments
I'm
in
in
there
for the
that
ride.
I want to talk about. And one of them is
I was curious about. I was going to ask you about in your rewatch. Like, is that what you're about to bring up?
not quite. There were just a couple of Kim moments. I
Okay,
wanted to
I'll
talk
let you
about.
finish your point, then I'll ask my
Sure.
question.
Okay, so the carrot and the stick episode is where it's like a little bit like actually scary watching her just sit there and contemplate. And when she actually goes, they've had the carrot, we've got to give them the stick. And she calls her guy at the like she's full control over everything, and she's just like she's kind of clicked. There's like it's like Jimmy spends like the first season going I don't know, and then at some point just jumps ship. But it's like I always felt that Kim was what was holding on to the piece of Jimmy that existed within Saul. And when Kim is
Oh, yeah.
gone, only Saul remains. But there was that particular like feeling that you get when watching it, which is just again, it's devastating. And you compare things like I was thinking when you were talking about it before, JJ, the like mediocrity, where you know, like she doesn't have a bad life. It's fine.
No,
And I
it's
was thinking
fine.
as you were talking about it, I was like, the chemistry she has with Jimmy versus with her partner she has later in the season. I don't even know if we get a name for him. Let's call him Jim.
think it's
That's how unimportant
boring
it
ass
is.
It's
I think it's
generic
like
white
kinda
man
like
hashtag one.
Jake.
Yeah,
No,
it is
his
something
name?
like that.
Fake fan.
Yeah. But
Okay, you don't know the
Oh,
caliber of
no.
the rifle that. Like,
so what it reminds me of is
What is Francesca's dog's name? I'm just kidding.
You know?
I fucking.
I don't know if she has a dog.
She
Like,
have a dog. I
Fake
don't know.
fan. Fake fan.
I wanted to say that
say a fake fact about
Sorry,
something.
now. Sorry.
you're good. I was gonna say that it reminded me of like La La Land to a little bit. Like if you think about
I've
that
never
Yeah.
seen that movie. I haven't seen it.
I don't want to spoil it for you, because
White people doing jazz.
It's more
should
than
I
that.
watch-
It's more
It's
than
Okay,
that.
alright.
Come on,
that.
JJ.
Okay.
How do you not trust us yet? Like, La La Land is like my second favorite movie of all time. Just gonna put that.
How do you
out
not trust Damien Chazelle?
Shut the
That's my
fuck
question.
up.
there. Like,
Sorry.
I saw La La Land.
Second favorite movie of all time?
yeah,
Of all
yeah,
time?
Yeah, I have Eternal Sunshine of the
all
La
Spotless
La
time.
Mind
Land
and La La
has
Land.
the most I've ever watched a film in the theaters by a mile.
Wait, what's the first one now? I'm sorry.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay, that's my fourth one, favorite of all time. But La La Land, damn.
Yeah. But yeah, there's something about and those of you that have watched it without spoiling it for JJ, there's something about the chemistry you have with one person compared to the chemistry with the person that follows that is like, yeah, it's a little,
I
it's
agree.
devastating. It's
I
like,
see your metaphor, and it's very clear.
yeah,
Okay,
you know what I'm
alright.
saying. You know what I'm saying. It's that
Yep.
final shot.
And
yeah,
you're
We know.
right.
that
correct.
final cut.
Yeah, we know. We know.
And it, yeah, it's like it's really it's painful to see that, and also seeing how towards the end of season 6, she's very confident in herself, very trusting of herself that she's making the right call and doing the right thing. But once it unravels that where those decisions landed her and what happens post, then when we see her, the trust and confidence she has in herself as Kim Wexler is gone, like
Gone.
to the point
Utterly.
where, and intentionally, I realized after listening to the podcast, the feeling that she cannot bring herself to make any small decision, that even something as simple as somebody coming out and going like, hey, should we get like chocolate or vanilla cake? And she's just kind of like, oh, I love both. What do you think? Chocolate? Okay, cool. Or, oh, I didn't have any of this. I didn't really know what to do. We could put this in instead. What do you think? Okay, you think so? Let's do it. She's gotten rid of all agency that she had. And
Correct.
it's what we were talking. It's a fate
becomes
worse than
the
death.
Jon Favreau
It is a
version
fate
character.
worse than death.
Yeah.
And
It's,
Pep jumped
um,
into chat as well.
Character with respect.
From a cutthroat to not being able to decide is it chocolate or vanilla. What do you want? Like that's
Yeah.
insane journey. But then she does find a piece of herself when she's able to like, okay, I'm gonna kind of atone for my crimes.
Yeah.
And then she's like volunteering at the legal clinic and all that and answering
Yeah.
that phone, and there's a little bit of confidence coming back in her.
Exactly. We have hope
like,
for her by the
she-
end of the series.
There's hope for Kim, and she is the catalyst for Jimmy not technically getting away.
Yeah. And
'Cause
it's like
he would have gotten away with
Oh,
it.
yeah,
7
yeah.
years is nothing.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
he
you
was there.
what
parole
he
it,
did?
good behavior, you're out in what, maybe even less. But for what he did, the weight of those crimes, and Kim is the reason. He looked at her and be like, if she's gonna go through this journey, atone for her crimes, maybe I can do it too.
Yeah.
But then at the end, the way they look at each other, like I was questioning, did he actually feel bad about any of it? And I fucking love that I don't know.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
what I
And
love about
also,
the
I want to
ending
add to
and
that
Neff-
we
Okay,
were
go
talking
ahead.
about how her sorry, Kay. We're talking about
No, I
how
know.
her costume changes quite a bit, and it's almost like the wardrobe in the last conversation with Saul is like, or with Jimmy, it's like a return to form. It's like, again, we have like hope, and yeah, those last sequences of them looking back at each other, it's like, what are you guys thinking? And there is some beautiful like visual storytelling there with Jimmy behind the bars and her free, and like it's good, it's great. And Pep jumped in chat as well and said, I spy the most beautiful person alive. Tate, Naf, and JJ are pretty lovely too. So congratulations, Kay.
Yeah.
Like us, I guess.
We knew it.
But coming
so
back to your
here's-
point there,
I was,
Kay, what were you gonna
I was
say?
gonna say Keegan.
It's
Because
what-
you're looking dapper, you're looking very Saul Goodman-y,
Listen, that's the vibe. When I saw Saul Goodman going with that,
I-
at the time, I didn't know I was gay, so I was like, "Look, straight men can do it too." And then I was like,
love it.
"Nope, I'm just gay." And then it's just based, but then, so, but
I love it. I love it.
But to the point of like Kim's arc, and it has always been something that I thought was really there. And I told my friend, because we had a thing, we went to Pally Fest for Better Call Saul. It was right before the final season was coming out, so we saw the first episode early. And my buddy and I, we went to a bar afterwards. We were just talking, and we were like, "Fuck, man, I will tear up if I see Kim in black and white." Like, because I was like, I didn't realize how much I cared about this character until I was thinking about the emotional reaction I will have to the concept that this character made it through Breaking Bad. Like that the concept that this person did make it out on the other side. Now I thought it was going to be them in like again, the theory I had for the longest time was that Kim got out via the disappearer, and it was going to be a moment of like Kim's going to get there, and it's like they're going to have this Omaha, Nebraska moment where they meet up at a location. She gets out of the taxi, and the last shot is like her in black and white and them looking at each other in this sort of like smile kind of nod, and then that's where we would end. I'm so glad that wasn't what they did.
This was so much better.
This was infinitely better, and I always wanted
better.
it to, and I always wanted it to, like, one of the things was once I realized where they were going with it, I was like, okay, I want it to end with a trial, because that was where the show began. That's where it needs to end. This isn't a gun shootout thing. Like, it needs to end in this trial.
Correct.
And Kim's arc with that, truly, as you said, meeting her end, it's the end they deserved. And the only thing I want to add more to this conversation about talking about a character that the end that they deserved, there are two of them that I thought, well, I guess three, they can kind of all be tied in with a similar thing, is Nacho, Howard, and Lalo.
Don't talk to me about Nacho. I will cry on live. I will cry on live.
Now we gotta do it then. Thanks for letting us know.
I was bawling. I was bawling.
Episode 3 of season 6 is the episode when I know people get to it. I check on people.
Didn't I text you? One of you texted me because I mentioned Nacho in my Twitter.
Like, we both.
I'm getting like different DMs from two. I'm like, because you saw my tweet. Because I'm like, oh my god, redacted. Because I'm trying to be vague on in spoilers. And then I'm getting DMs. Are you okay? I'm like, no. Are you fucking kidding me? I am literally falling apart.
I think it was also one of those ones where that's one of the best cold opens in the series. Because it's subtle. It's just the flowers. And it's not until you go and rewatch it that you see the flower and the blood on the flower and the glass on the ground that, like... And it's one of those things where it's also like... And one of the things that hurts so much about that is from the end of season 5, you knew this was the end. Yeah. You knew. Like, there wasn't actually a way for Nacho to get out of this. And
no, none.
Through 3 episodes, the way that they... basically throw you onto broken glass on the ground and just drag you through it to get to the end and just inevitably kill you anyway is so painful. And that last conversation he has with his dad, just checking in, just want to say I love you.
That's it.
That's it.
And his dad has no clue.
But the fact that Mike followed him to ensure that his ending is merciful, that he's not tortured.
Ready to do it.
I am broken over it. Nacho broke me. That whole storyline, because I was expecting such a stereotype of a character. You're correct. It's like drug dealer doing bad things, doing sketchy shit. Like, I was
like,
really.
You expect that
he's still a bad person. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but like,
yeah. And it's another one of like, you know, it's a
he's
good person doing bad things.
I know what I did wrong. He is so like Mike in that regard, where they both know.
And that's why they connected.
And they've always been. I always felt with Nacho, and even Michael Mando has talked about this in the podcast. And Tate, I'm not sure if you feel the same way, because of obviously you love the Mike stuff. You feel that way about Nacho too. But what Michael Mando would say is that he would always, as an actor, think about, why the fuck did I get involved in the cartel anyway? But I do feel like that works for the character, because I feel the character is spending this entire show wondering why the fuck I got involved in the first place. Because like by the time he gets to the point where he is Gus's informant, but he's technically at the top of the food chain, he should have everything that he wants, and it's the last thing that he needs. And one of my favorite Nacho moments is when he tells Don Eladio, like, what do you really want? I want to be able to choose my fate without looking over my shoulder. And then Don Eladio looking him in the eye and saying, well, then you chose the wrong business, my friend. And it's that moment of like,
so good. Holy shit!
It hurts me. I'm just like, what?
Yeah,
what?
Because you're not wrong. Like, you're not wrong, and that's the thing that makes it so painful as well. Because like at a certain point, you come to terms with what's going to happen to Nacho, and you see the story that this is telling us is he doesn't get away with it, and it's like, you know, that last scene of just like Mike knows what needs to happen, and Nacho knows what needs to happen, and Mike just goes and grabs the like scotch or whiskey or whatever, and just like, let's just have a drink.
God, oh my god, my soul hurts right now.
And
like
they're just silent. They don't even say anything. They just sit.
Why is this empty? Why is this empty?
But we're gonna say, but in the words of Darkside Divas, the bad timing sexiness counter on Nacho's growl.
And I love Steph so much.
When
I love you, Steph. If you're seeing it.
Yep. I dear God, I hope so. Like, but it's like there's the moment where the bad timing sexiness counter happens when he's like, every day you're sipping on your Jello, and every day you can't get up, you think of me, and I go, "Who?"
You forgot the best part of that line is when he goes, "You sick." And he, like,
oh
spits it out of his
yeah,
mouth.
and it's just like
the best
I
part.
am.
That was
I was so mad that he was not nominated for an Emmy that year
Dude.
for it there. But
Emmy,
I'm like,
everybody on that
the
show.
Emmys, I'm like literally I have always maintained, I'm like, if you're not going to give this show an Emmy this year, because I'm like, it's not going to win Best Series. Last of Us is probably going to win, but it's like,
Wait, is the season 6 part 2 eligible?
exactly, it
Yes.
is eligible.
That's my question. Is it?
It is.
It is.
Okay.
They have one more shot. My hope is Ray Seahorn wins for Waterworks. That I think that will be for me the funniest thing about, or like I will feel like, okay, accepted. Like I will accept the fact that this probably is not going to win Best Series. It's probably not going to do that. Unfortunately, it's just not. And I don't know if I would give it, given Last of Us and Andor being in this conversation.
Better Call Saul is better than Andor and
I
The Last
agree.
of Us.
But
it's
I
a popularity
agree.
contest,
the,
right?
The
That's the
Academy
problem.
is not going to think that way. Like, unfortunately, I
thought
hope
the
they
bear
do.
was comedy.
If it,
But I mean,
like-
the competition is like The Last of Us is incredible. I need people to understand. Andor is. This is all
Incredible.
top quality.
This is like basically
literally
saying this is like A's and an A plus. Like
plus,
this is
that's
all
it.
like 0.2 difference. But the thing with with Nacho to me is Nacho did have a certain part of the heart of the show. Like he had this almost like you unwillingly loved him.
Yeah.
Like
Dude.
they just took you on this joyride of like, this character's not who you think he is,
No.
but he's aware of what he is. And that's why his ending was so poetic. With it was why for a while I was like, fuck man, I don't know how the rest of the season's gonna work out, because I was just like,
if
it
you're
happened in the
capable,
third episode.
but if you're capable of taking down fucking Tuco down like 2 degrees down, because
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like that tells you about yourself, like who you are. Like if you can literally talk him off, calm him down for like a minute.
yeah.
That's when I got really curious into the character. I'm like, he's protecting these kids, and Saul for what reason? Like what's the point of protecting them? And then later on it pays off because he sees the bigger picture. You know what I mean? But like
I love
that's
it.
how charismatic he was in a moment. That he's able to talk of a crazed, drugged maniac, essentially. Tuco's sort of a caricature of a character, which the story needs that. You know what I mean? Nacho has a place in my heart that a Breaking Bad character, I mean, in this universe, hasn't had in a long time. Like
I agree.
I think I posted something on my Twitter when I first met him, and Nidra, she messaged me private, and I'm like, oh my god, are you watching Better Call Saul, and are you into Nacho? I'm like, don't say a word, don't pry me, don't pry me.
Don't say it's that moment of everybody going, yeah, don't worry, he's fine. He's fine.
And I just want to point one thing out to your listeners, that I avoided Better Call Saul without a single fucking thing being spoiled to me.
That's so
Zero.
impressive.
That is
Which is funny
that is
considering like
Must be nice.
we were just
Must
talking
be
about
nice.
Secret Invasion before, and I was like, oh, let's not talk about spoilers. And then I quickly checked my Twitter, and it was like the spoiler, which I'm assuming you guys are mad about. So now I know, which is great.
Tate, I'm
So you know about the end?
I think so.
Oh,
Tate, I'm curious.
I'm so sorry.
Like, I want to know for you, Tate. Nacho, in the grand scheme of things, with obviously his relation to Mike and things like that, how did that character work for you?
Interesting. How like his story running parallel to Mike's?
Well, however you want to take that question. Like, I figured that being so intrinsically tied with Mike's story, that there's a lot of the beautiful things that Mike's story had to offer that were part and parcel because Nacho added really interesting flavors to that story. And I was very curious. Just you're a very thoughtful, articulate man. I really want to know your thoughts on Nacho as a character, even if it is repeating similar things. I just truly want to know.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I think the Mike and Nacho relationship is an interesting one because I might say something a little spicy here. We'll see how this goes. Mike wants to save Nacho to save himself. Mike wants to save Jesse because he wants to make up for realizing what he should have done with his son and Nacho.
He wants to make it right by retribution.
Yeah.
Like
Mike's playing catch up when it comes to when his relationship with Nacho. He's thinking like, oh, you know, he sees it as like I've got a second chance to like save someone like this young like representative figure. Nacho is 2 steps ahead of him. He's like, buddy, I'm not making it out of this one. I don't think you know that yet. I don't think you know how deep I'm in. And it's something that kind of permeates throughout their relationship where Nacho knows how long he's been in the game for. Mike, for all intents and purposes, he took his bribes. He was a dirty cop, but he's never been that deep into gangster territory and gangster cartel lifestyle. Nacho's been there. He's been on the jump. He's been in Salamanca territory. He's been in Gus's territory. He knows that journey. So Nacho as a window for Mike to kind of experience how deep he's gotten himself in just for like just a casual job that he needed to do to get some, you know, cash, how completely unaware of the scope of what he was getting into. And Nacho, the young underdog, had to be the one to catch the old dog up on, listen, this is where you're getting at. I thought that was very interesting. The fact that Nacho taught Mike a few things that even he hasn't experienced. You know, everyone respects Mike. I think the appeal of the Mike character is that he's always calm and collected, and he's so knowledgeable, and he just knows how to walk into a room and diffuse any situation, any tension. Nacho is a very necessary upset for Mike's life, and with Mike approaching into a situation which he thinks he knows all and he can get out. He's the guy that can smooth talk Hector. He's the guy that can get out of any situation. Nacho kind of being the person to bring him down to earth and be like, you don't really know what you're getting into, old man. I do. And Mike seeing that as an opportunity, oh, you know, this young guy, he doesn't know what he's getting into. I can help him out and save him. That whole dynamic to their relationship I found to be very interesting. And by the end of it,
you had a really great point that just triggered this thought that I was like, it's kind of even when you see like one of my favorite lines, because kind of it's the scene that can, in theory, besides the finale, concludes Mike's story, is the scene with Nacho's dad. Is the last scene that Mike is really in canonically in Better Call Saul. Like obviously you have the flashback little scene in you know Saul Gone, but
last scene in that universe,
and I think there's a reason for that. Like the point is that Nacho, as you're talking about, Nacho knew. Even yes, you can argue everybody in the scene when Nacho's about to blow his brains out, everybody has plot armor. Unfortunately, we know all those characters make it. Sure, but besides that, he gets the gun. He could have taken a shot or two at one of those guys, but that's not who, in my opinion, Nacho is in that moment of that's not what I'm doing here. I'm taking my death away from you.
Correct. That wasn't the point.
It's that agency that he's always craved. And the thing is, Mike will tell Nacho's dad that the people who did this will pay for it. And his dad knew that's just more violence. That's revenge. Yeah. It's not justice.
Yeah.
But also, there's a point, like you said, for that to be Mike's final scene. It's 2 fathers that lost a son.
Yeah.
In 2 different methods, in 2 different ways, JJ. 2 different lives.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, but you are right, and I think that also the word that keeps coming up in our conversation here, which seems to be like, like a theme through Breaking Bad and through this, is it is at its core all of our characters trying to take back agency and have control over what's happening. Walt feels like he has no control over where his life was. And so he does what he needs to do to get back control of his life. So he's in control. And Jimmy, same deal. You know, like his whole, even before the show, him trying to not be Slip and Jimmy and blah, and like actually do something. Like he's trying to escape the control of the world around him by doing things a different way. And yeah, you've got Kim in the same scenario and Nacho everybody's trying to escape the control that somebody else has over them. And that's like what I'm realizing in this moment is like the core theme of the show. I don't know what you guys think about that. But yeah, JJ, go.
I have a thought now, like didn't cross me before. He had the chance to get away with it, right? And if he knows if he gets away with it, he'll be back in the same fucking vicious cycle of doing the same shit over and over again. And Kim came in at the right time to ground him, and he's like, "No, I did it. Give me 86 years." Because if I get to 7, I'm out. I'm gonna be back to being Slippin' Jimmy. And I've been fighting my entire time to not be Slippin' Jimmy.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I want to add, because Keegan was talking about like his expectations for the finale, and I remember telling you this when we met and we were talking, and I was like, in my mind, the final scene of the show is Saul in court and turning around and seeing Kim and that kind of like half smile. Like, I expected that it was going to be like, I don't know, him just walking into court and then being like, you know, a court is now in session, blah, 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 and he just turns around to look and she's just sitting in the corner and just being like, cut to black. That was my pitch for the finale. And we got something really similar. Yeah.
But even the jail scene, like when she's walking away and they look at each other one last time, when you as the audience, as a viewer, you are not left with a concrete answer. Like, we know Kim is trying to like get her redemption, get back her agency in a way, like you guys were saying. But Jimmy is the questionable one, and I fucking love the ambiguity.
Yeah.
Is that a Slippin' Jimmy, or is that Jimmy who we know?
Well, and I think that that's always been the interesting thing about Jimmy, because even in the latter seasons, my buddy and I would have the debate if Chuck was right, where like the scene where he talks with Kim, because he says something very interesting, which is, you know, Jimmy does, like, I think I'm gonna butcher it, but he basically says, like, you know, Jimmy does the worst things for reasons that seem almost noble, and then he's like, you're a hand grenade. You don't mean for it to happen.
Damn.
But it does happen. And I started thinking about it, and it kind of was a thing of like where I want to defend Jimmy, but I also look at his actions. And again, I think that what I love about the show is I think it's not a clear-cut answer either way.
No,
like,
it's really
and that's
not.
the brilliance of it, is that you can't say because of Chuck, Jimmy is this way. It's like, it certainly didn't help, but
yeah,
Jimmy was this way before we even got started with the show. But it's like, you know, like, it's this thing with it that like, I find that to be really interesting. And I will bring my boy up because I want to talk about him before we wrap up. Yeah. We wrap up, because I would love to wrap up finally with the 5-episode question, because I think that that's a good thing to kind of wrap up on. But I got to talk about my boy Lalo, because and this is a very much a me.
We haven't even talked about Howard either.
Well, that's what I was going to also talk about. Howard was one of those characters that I loved what they did with him. Because you start off thinking he's the villain of this show, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's the kind of like, or not villain, but he's one of the antagonists. He's the corporate antagonist of the show.
Kind of a corporate dick, yeah. Corporate dick.
And then they made the brilliant choice of making it like Chuck. And it's like, oh no, Howard was just doing what Chuck, like, Howard didn't want to do it.
But they were literally essentially the kind of same.
Yeah.
But you empathize with Chuck more because of this connection to the main character, while Howard is just the Howard corporate ghoul.
There was the headcanon as well.
Taking the hit.
There was the headcanon that you told me too, Keegan, which was like a lot of the relationship between Howard and Chuck you can add heaps of context to that, with the idea that potentially there was something between them at some point. And it was like,
Allie was watching this a little bit of the show with me, and she pointed it out to me of like, Howard and Chuck are definitely banging it out.
Well, there's little moments in there that you go,
they're definitely there.
There's obviously Howard would have come in as young and Chuck would have been older, so like there could have been some kind of weird dynamic at the job there. But then you have this feeling of like, we don't really know why Howard is at odds with his wife besides just things. And then you add to that layers of when Chuck, they didn't want to pay him out properly. Howard was like, I'll pay him out of my own pocket, and his wife was really upset by the fact that he's spending his money on Chuck. So like,
there was a huge rift in their marriage.
Yeah, you could look at it as, oh, maybe there was some kind of weird affair between Howard and Chuck or something like that in the past. And then his wife found out about it, and then there were still feelings. And like, yeah, like, I don't know. There's just another layer there that if you think about it,
Certainly not
does
necessarily
add.
hinted by the show,
Yeah,
but
like,
it's one that I have personally subscribed to as
is
like
interesting.
a
I'm just
fun
wondering.
headcanon.
I'm just wondering if there was a moment in any of the episodes that alluded to that. Like for me, like Gus being queer was clear in Breaking Bad, even clearer in here. Like they doubled down on obviously.
sure.
But I'm just curious, where did you pick up that?
I don't think it started off as like Allie. I don't know if she was being fully serious at the time, and then just sort of everything after that was confirmation bias. But it was like she just determined at some point while we were watching that she was gonna like Howard and Chuck are together. That's
I think
the ship.
definitely,
They are.
I definitely picked up on Howard having some like queer coding to him.
I do agree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I'll agree.
Chuck
I'll
also
agree.
like he does have that a little bit as well. And you've got this kind of like, oh, we don't really know why both their relationships were on the fritz. And men in the early 2000s, this wasn't really like common. Like it could have been a thing of
That's
like
very true.
Especially in the
maybe
legal
not
field.
even with each other. Maybe it wasn't something with each other, but maybe that was actually something that.
Well,
you know,
you're also keep
I
in
could
mind, this is
see-
the legal field we are talking about.
Exactly.
There is a very
There's
public
shows.
image to maintain with that sort of thing, and obviously at that time period, not exactly the best time to like divorce your wife and become gay with this other person.
Well,
You know what I
Patrick
mean?
Fabian
Like,
actually came
it's-
out and said that Howard was a little gay at heart. So
Okay. No, it makes sense. It was
So
coded
he
that
played
way
him
for
that
sure.
way,
Yeah.
And then you've got other people on Reddit commenting, I shipped him with Chuck for a while. I know it wouldn't be canon now that Chuck's dead and he was obviously straight with Rebecca. But you erase Rebecca from the story, don't you think it could be a possibility? Things like that. Like it just, yeah.
Tate, what do you think?
About Howard being queer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ask the straightest, whitest guy in the room. What he thinks about Howard being queer?
It's okay. Don't worry. This is just Pride. This is my month, so I get
That's
to choose
fine.
what I do with it.
Yeah, I'm only
No,
giving you
it's-
one, by the way. July 1st, it's coming. It's coming.
Incredible.
I mean, no,
So-
I never saw it that way, but I mean, that's the thing. I never saw it that way, so I'm interested to hear you and have to talk about it because I'm like, oh, okay, I never considered that as a thing.
Well, it's even just kind of like a funny thing of thinking about it and then being like, actually,
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like,
Yeah. Howard being
Yes.
queer definitely coded, but I just did not pick up on Chuck and Howard being
Yeah.
anything more.
well,
than,
again, I
I
don't
saw
think
it as
I don't think it
more,
was like a passionate like affair like Jimmy and Kim, but I think
like
it's
a crush,
certainly
maybe.
like I think it's certainly romantic to a certain degree. Whether it was fully
Yeah.
embraced or not is a different thing, but certainly like they
Right.
always brought the bottle of like they always brought the bottle every time to celebrate, like, you know.
Yeah.
Like that there are like things there that obviously it could be just even they were very, very close friends, like they were brothers at heart.
If best friends
And
don't seem a little bit
that's why
gay,
their
they're not
endings-
best friends.
Correct.
That is a meme that is actually true.
So
Now
I pride myself, clever choice of words, on having people question all my relationships with men. If they're not questioned, it's just
if I don't question them, I mean, am I having a friendship?
Same with me
But,
and
like,
women.
Fair enough.
Same with me and women.
Well, anyway, talking about my man, one of the biggest surprises in this entire show, besides like Howard Hamlin was one of them, but
Yeah, he
fucking
was-
Lalo Salamanca. When you're talking about a series, both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul,
Yeah.
arguably some of the most iconic TV villains ever to be put to
Ever.
screen
Ever.
is like whether you're talking about Heisenberg himself, Gus, Tuco, the cousins, like there are so many iconic villains in Breaking Bad that like Lalo was hinted at. And I was very curious to see what the heck Lalo was going to be because Lalo is mentioned in Breaking Bad. And the thing was, I was like, okay, he's clearly terrifying enough to terrify Saul. That was always the thing for me, was like, clearly Saul has this person in his head. So this guy's scary. And then when Tony Dalton came in and he had this charisma,
Yeah.
but it was so interesting.
it subverted the
because-
expectation of a Breaking Bad
Well,
villain.
but then what it did was
Charisma.
the way that they wrote it though was he would almost do the Gus thing where it's like he's so charismatic that you're right there with it. It's like how lucky for me. And then the minute he gets to the parking lot, he's like, show me, sits in the car and chucks the thing out the window. So all his actions are incredibly disrespectful but his words are so kind. Like and that's where it started really being like, who the fuck is this guy? And you can tell from season 4 to season 5, they were like, oh, Tony Dalton's playing this character in a much better way than we have him written. We're gonna full tilt lean into his whole vibe in season 5.
Is that the season where he murders the couple that was helping him out after he escaped his assassination?
That's
that's season 6, but it's leading into that. His
To me,
assassination
that was
is
terrifying. That was fucking terrifying. That whole sequence of events, and then the murder of Howard felt like a horror movie. Like that was more terrifying.
Okay, yeah.
That was more terrifying to me than Hereditary and Midsummer.
Wow.
Question for all of you guys.
I'm serious.
With that moment, because Tate, was that spoiled for you? Was Howard's death spoiled for you?
Yes, it was.
Are you
I thought
serious?
so.
Howard's death, Nacho's death, and
seriously?
something. The only death that wasn't spoiled for me was Chuck. I think that's it.
His suicide wasn't spoiled?
I got Howard's death spoiled because someone sent me a meme of like Howard getting shot. It's like the split second before like the bullet.
Oh, come
connects,
on.
And it says my honest reaction to that information.
That's great.
Did you throw away your phone against like the door or something?
I was on season 5 at that point, so I was just like,
fuck.
Damn it.
I would have been so pissed. I would have been so pissed.
It's the nature of the beast of being online, though. Like it's.
I get it, but still,
it's the nature.
It was.
I didn't know that Howard dies and the nature of his death. Like I literally dream about it.
Wow, what a time.
I felt really bad because while I was watching through Better Call Saul, like especially like the last season, as things were happening, I was like, like blown away by things, and I was reacting like crazy in the living room. And at the time, like my partner at the time was living with me, and like Howard's death, I like had to go over and kind of like go like, do you care about spoilers? Like I need to unpack this, and we spoke about it a bit.
Yeah.
And then only a few weeks later, it was like we should watch this series together. So she went into it knowing that as well, and I was like, damn it! Like couldn't you not just say you didn't like spoilers, and I could have got your honest reaction to this? Because it happened, and she was like, yeah, I remember you talking about this. I was like, fuck.
Oh damn! Oh my god!
But the rest of it, she had no idea. So that was great.
I had two things that happened to me. I have a very distinct memory of this. This is how this show like has certain moments in my life is like etched in stone. So when Howard dies, I'm watching this in my living room, and like I'm watching this in my bedroom in LA. I had to wait 6 months. How long was it now? Like 3 months?
Yeah,
like 3 months?
Oh, it was a bit longer.
3 months before I figured out. Yeah, it was like 3 months until I knew what happened. I didn't know what the fuck was happening. I couldn't go to the next episode. I couldn't go to the next and when you said, JJ, you were able to go to the next episode, a part of me went like, you should wait for 2 months like your forefather. Like,
actually, I did the same thing.
I do remember that. I remember
halfway
that
through
conversation. Yeah, I remember that conversation.
Because yeah, I was like, yeah, how'd you feel after that? And you were like, yeah, I just went straight on to the next one. And I was like, yeah, we had to wait 2 goddamn months.
I'm the dumbass who watched both seasons of The Boys in like one sitting.
Oh yeah.
I need therapy. Like I needed therapy after that nonsense.
But here was the key thing with me with the resolution. The next episode, I was in fucking Israel on a production, and I had to make sure I was going to be able to watch this shit. So I had bought the season pass for the show as it would like come out like with things, so it would like pop up into like my
yeah.
And so I bought the season pass, and I get that, and we're about to go into production, and it's that ocean, like that ocean shot of like the car and like the wallet and the thing there, and I'm literally right next to like the what is it, like the Mediterranean. And so like it just etched in my mind like the perfect like place, and like seeing that and then just having that moment of I was just in shock. Because I will say this, I have one gripe with Lalo's death. I love Lalo so much, and I think he's the one character out of all of them. It was unfortunate what they had to do with his character, because it's like the rest of them.
Yeah, I get it.
The
I know
rest
what
of
you're
them,
gonna say.
Kim can survive. That makes sense. That's great. She doesn't have to die and get out of the story. The way that they intrinsically tied Lalo to this moment with Gus, we know Gus can't die. And what I have told, I think we had this conversation at some point, but I just want to have it on the record. I felt that the thing was they created such a good villain that if Gus had not lived in Canada, I think Gus would have died there.
Oh, Gus would have died easily. The plot armor was crazy. Oh,
I vehemently disagree with you.
Okay.
Really?
I disagree. I'll stake my foot into the discussion on this one. I reckon it's a tricky discussion. I think the reason that Lalo is such an appealing character is because, like Naf said earlier, a lot of what the characters in the Gilliganverse really like seek is agency and a sense of claim over their life and their direction. And a lot of what makes the villains really good and makes them so appealing with characters like Gus and Mike is that they are able to maintain control and composure in situations that would otherwise offset us, like the viewers, being calm and composed around Don Eladio, around all the gangsters. For Gus to poison that man and maintain his composure, for characters to be in these life or death situations and remain calm, cold, and like completely detached, and I can be in control of myself. Lalo as a villain is an outlier because he represents chaos, right? Lalo comes into any situation and any sense of order or security that you think you have is perverted by Lalo. His presence, his energy, it is an upset to balance and to calm. And that's why there's such a good relationship between Lalo and Gus, because Gus represents a very aggressive level of control and fixation. And Lalo is the complete antithesis of that. So the idea of that confrontation ending, Lalo is the smarter person. He is the smarter man, the stronger man, the better fighter. He is superior in every way. The fact that he gets taken out by sheer luck is brilliant, because for the first time in his life, Gus had to rely outside of control in order to win a battle. And that's the only time that he could get ahead over Lalo. Is when he had to forego composure, he had to forego everything. Sure, he kind of had a semblance of a plan, but he had to go out on a whim and not know whether he was going to leave that room or not. I think it's brilliant. And the fact that Lalo smiles at him and kind of nods and he's like, well done. He kind of gives him this,
he kind of has that respect.
And I think that
it's that Joker thing where like Joker wants Batman to kill him so badly because he will break his rule. And Lalo's like, I got you.
Yeah, and it's like, I think
you're never going to be the same again.
I love your point. I really agree with it too. Like, I was on the camp of like, I didn't hate that ending. Like, I thought like, shock, not how I expected it to go, but I was kind of like, it works for me. But I hadn't really given it much thought. And what you're saying, I agree with completely. So great work.
I thought it was plot armor out of control.
But I never took that take to it.
But there's something interesting about how, when you think of it like that, it also goes, Gus up to this point, there was a version of him that was trying so hard to hold on to control that it was driving him insane. And it's almost like what you're saying, actually letting go of a little bit of it and letting things just happen and play out kind of like gave him that part of growth that he needed to be at the end of the series Gus Fring, like he is a different character post that episode. And those final scenes tell us a lot about that, because even the conversation with Mike, when he closes the door on Mike and Mike's like, you went in there, you'd like, I had everything and you still did this. And there's that part of him going like, I'm him. I am him. That's me. And that moment really taught him that. So I really like it as a complete arc for him. And Tate, honestly, incredible. Really, really great insight.
Truly.
I never thought of it that way. Never thought of it that way.
Does it not tie into him in Breaking Bad as well? Because that's the first time that he's kind of not sticking to the plan, where he goes against his core ethos and his sense of order by hiring Walter and Jesse. And look where that gets him. Him taking more risks and being more flexible and affordable was beneficial in that moment. But that lapse in security eventually leads to his downfall.
But even deliberate. But look how that scene. You're right. That scene is framed in a way that Lalo takes out his security immediately. So we're not thinking about his protection. We're not thinking about his bodyguards. It's literally two of them. And you're right. I have never thought of it that way. I thought it was a little too plot armor heavy, silly even. Like this is pure luck. What the hell? Like that character deserved better death, but no. Like my mind has changed.
The only thing that my theory, and this is also where it gets tough, because I fully agree with you, Tate. This is the story they told, and you just justified it the hell out of like certain parts of it that I would have been like, I as a
I never
viewer
thought of it that way.
can take this death to heart, even though I will still give my pitch as to what I thought I potentially.
Go for it, yeah.
It could have also fell on its face. But the one thing that I thought, the only thing
Damn.
that I thought that didn't make much sense was, and I get it, it's PTSD response, right? But it felt like there's pretty much a door shut on Lalo. Jimmy talking about Lalo so vividly when he is at that foot of the grave was the only thing that I was like, I get the PTSD, and it's a good enough excuse, and I'll take it. Like, I buy it. It makes sense. But it was like, my pitch was this. And this is mainly because, again, it's one of those headcanon things that you can't fully separate from watching a show. But my theory was, I would be interested what if he went out like No Country for Old Men, where it was more of like Lalo is in the midst of his search. Again, you're talking about like irony for a character that would be so hot on your tail, so like so close to getting you. And then some shit happens. He is going through a green light, fucking gets smacked on the door, dies, but no one else, because technically this guy is dead on paper already.
Can I push back?
Well,
I've got something
I guess
for that,
my
I'd like to hear you finish.
Well, it was more my only thing with it was the idea that then the paranoia that Gus has in Breaking Bad is because he doesn't know if Lalo is still out there and just biding his time, and Saul
like that.
likewise doesn't know. So when that trench is opened up, fuck, this is the demon at the end of the hallway that was always going to get me. It was always just a theory I had. I like what you pitched, but JJ, go ahead.
No, the only reason I want to push back is I was with you the whole time until a second ago, because the entire yin and yang of the villainy in Better Call Saul, besides Jimmy and his journey, it's Gus Fring versus Lalo, two completely opposite personalities. He had to go by Gus. He has to.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. To me, like the scene, the way it played out, it was a bit silly. I'm like, the quality of the show is so good, and all of a sudden there's like this luck shot that's like dark and weird, and there's like bright lights, and I'm like, you know what? You disoriented as a viewer. But that's exactly the point. It's total lack of control that Gus is trying so desperately to hang on to by scrubbing those, whatever. Yeah, it works to me.
You're
two
right.
of them are mirrored to each other. You just
sold me on it too, because I'm like,
I am so sold right now.
I want to add to that.
You would have had to get rid of that element of it, and as you said, as we've been talking about this entire thing,
God, I love it even more now. God damn it, fucking hell.
The thing about the show is also because, again, we should ask ourselves, why did they choose that route other than plot armor? Like, why why was it this way?
And there's your answer.
Because they've earned our respect to be able to say that. And
I would go so far as to say there is no plot armor in the show. Everything makes sense.
I agree.
But now he does.
Yeah.
I would have argued plot armor.
That was the only one. That was the only one for me. Now you've sold me on it as like
zero plot armor right now.
I think coming back around to the point you were talking about as well, because I had seen that scene with Saul, and I thought the same thing. My kind of head canon on where his head is at in that moment is, I'm like, because Lalo had already disappeared at one point and they thought he was dead, and he came back.
Yeah.
And when he comes back, he's also like, she's gonna go and do it, and you're gonna do this, and then Lalo goes. In my mind, I'm like, because Lalo had an expectation of how things were going to play out, if I was Jimmy, I'd be thinking he has a backup plan for if he gets killed, somebody's still going to take me out. And so that feeling of, did Lalo send you? It's like, it still works because Lalo could have sent somebody 10 years ago to go, hey, if he lives and survives through this and things plan out like this and you don't hear from me, I don't know, on this random day out here, just take him and do this to him. Like, I could see Lalo doing that kind of.
That's a great point.
You're right. You're so right.
So
you're so right.
In that instance, that kind of closes that part of the book for me nicely too, because I'm just like, I could see the way that Saul's brain runs, him thinking that.
Yeah, you're right, and I think Lalo, just for me, he became my favorite Breaking Bad villain. Just because, like, the charisma, and as you said, JJ, the most interesting thing was before that, obviously if you take Heisenberg out of the equation, before that, Gus was the big bad. Like you can't get better than Gus. Gus is such a brilliantly written character. It's such a smart move. But then when they had it be, at first I thought when they introduced Lalo, oh, he's going to be Mike's opposite number. Like he is going to be a combatant for Mike.
Framed that way. Yeah, it was framed that way for sure.
And
for
then when I realized, oh no, like as you said, Tate, no, this man's smarter than Gus. Like
He's
this
Gus's
man
foil. He's Gus's foil. That's
he
it.
is, as you said, it's the Joker to Batman. Like he is that sense of I am the chaos
that
you're not willing to do. That like, and that's why he's so good as a character and why he's always been so good. And I think why the show benefited from having him. And that's why wrapping into this, I do want to ask you guys as our wrap up question. I posed to you guys a question, which was we kind of mentioned it a little bit with some episodes, like Chicanery and 5-0 have come up. And there are episodes in this show that I feel are very emblematic of, if you were to basically take this show, think of it like a stew, and you were able to distill it down to its core elements. 5 episodes. And while you guys, if you ponder thing through, I can give you my 5, but 5 episodes, if you had to show this to somebody and be like, these 5 episodes, you don't need context. Not that context doesn't matter. Let's assume that they have context.
Okay.
What would the 5 episodes be that is the essence of this show to you? Like, this is essential to this show. Like, for myself, I felt 5-0 was the first one that showed, like, that is, you need to have one that represents Mike. I think 5-0 is the best one to do for that. Chicanery to get the Chuck Jimmy dynamic.
Yeah.
And then I'm leaning towards something unforgivable for Kim, where it's that moment with the finger guns, as you said,
finger
like
guns
JJ,
episode.
where it's the finger guns, because that's when you have the whole fuck. You're very different than I thought. And then I think it is the Nacho's death episode when you realize like I think that is such a core, all with the culmination of the finale.
Correct.
I think the finale is the most core to what this show is so good. It is the best. Like, it's one of the best finales I've ever seen.
Maybe I would. Which episode is the one? Again, if you ask me names and numbers of things, it's never gonna happen.
Totally.
With me, it's never gonna fucking happen. I'll tell you that.
I figured. That's why I was figuring you would just say which one that stuck out to me. Yeah.
The episode stuck out to me a lot. Besides Nacho's death, which I was like messaging everybody left and right, because I got emotionally attached to that character, knowing the outcome is gonna be not good. It's a matter of how, you know what I mean? So that I was journeying towards the how, but the one where Mike is trying to figure out who's tailing him.
That was. I know which one episode you're talking about.
Because there's like 10 or 15 minutes of that episode where there's no dialogue. There's no noise being made by the characters. It is so quiet. And I am like, again, feeling heavy. I love that episode. And when he talks to Nacho's dad, Nacho's whole escape thing when he's in a hotel room, like that was
really great.
The crux of really good, intense storytelling. And then when he's like submerged in the oil in the vent, or that, like, to me, like I was holding my breath, like I could not breathe. And ultimately the finale with Jimmy just being Jimmy, showing that he is actually a good lawyer. Technically, he really is. Like he proved Chuck wrong at the end, which I was kind of hoping for that. Their relationship is so strange to me in the best possible way.
Yeah.
So seeing Marie again, great.
That was also that was the biggest surprise out of everything.
Shocking.
Is that Marie?
It's just like Luke Skywalker and Mando. I'm like fucking fast asleep. Marie Schrader in the finale is like, I'm fucking wide awake, man.
Marie Schrader.
The people crave Marie Schrader.
Give the people what they want.
The character, she was sort of so not goofy. I don't want to use it, but she's just so like, you know what I mean? Like the way they framed her in Breaking Bad as sort of a naggy wife. Correct. It was very naggy, annoying kind of framing of that character, and all of a sudden she comes back and is this emotional sort of force behind the character, like, because what happened to Hank is devastating.
And it
And
was
we don't
nice
have-
to feel. It was nice to feel that, like that justice to what happened to Hank in Breaking
Correct.
Bad.
And she comes in as sort of literally a bit of a nod to a fan. Maybe that's the fan service that actually works because we feel a weight lifted because now we're
Yeah.
grieving a character. And it worked for me. It worked for me in the best way possible without feeling like I'm being, nostalgic.
Smacked over the head.
Correct. I'm emotionally manipulated. It worked. And yeah, that was probably one of my favorite moments. Besides Jesse and Kim talking in that line, you can't top that moment.
You
And I
can't.
thought it was gonna be very it's gonna be a callback to Walt or something weird, but no, it's about Saul. It's about Jimmy at the end of it. And that was fucking brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah.
I love
It came down to Jimmy. Even a Jesse moment between Kim and like connecting the
It was
two
all
worlds
about Jimmy.
together came down to Jimmy. And fuck you, Vince Gilligan, man. I'm never gonna doubt the man.
Peter Gould.
like-
this is a Jennifer
Peter Gould,
Corbett
correct.
situation. Peter Gould is the mastermind behind
Yeah.
at least the latter half of the show. But it's still a brilliant. I do think actually that one was Peter Gould though.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Vince Gilligan. I think you're right though. That episode specifically was, I think, Vince Gilligan.
Yeah.
But with that said, Tate, my brother in Christ, what do you have for us?
I mean, when I got this question from you, I couldn't really think of any 5 episodes, though I did think of some now, but that's not really what the crux of what I want to speak about is. So I'll say the 5,
Okay.
and then I'll say what I wanted to say. 5, probably 5-0, Mike backstory episode, chicanery, epic Chuck moment, funny meme, also Heel coming back. It's like, woo, Heel. But also just the culmination of the Jimmy and Chuck relationship and where that springs from. And just the catharsis of having it's like, see, Chuck's a little shit. Fuck, finally everyone gets
He
it.
is. He
Chuck's
is.
the worst.
Fuck Chuck.
Fuck Chuck.
Lantern is the season 3 finale.
Yeah.
That's
Oh.
awesome. I've never thought that a character that I've wanted since season 1 to die in the most violent, horrible way, dying would upset me. That was fuck,
It's that moment,
great.
but I didn't mean it.
I'm
But what do you
no,
mean?
No. I don't
Yeah.
want
It's
him
one
to
of those,
commit suicide all alone. Oh,
Yeah.
It's like
wait
one
a
of those
minute.
Nacho moments. Because at that point in the episode, we've landed on. It's very much like a Chekhov's gun. You've seen so many shots of lanterns and heard the gas for so long that you're kind of like.
Yeah.
Even
Oh
when we
man.
were watching back
I
through
know.
it, she'd picked up on something's gonna happen with these lanterns, and you're kind of like, I know where this is going. I don't think they'd do it, but it's probably where it's gonna end
Yeah.
up. And that kind of, what's it called? Not having, what is it? The tension of that is huge. So it's a huge
Yeah.
episode. Keep going.
Mhm. Stakes.
Yeah, and then-
Tension.
Winner, which is the season 4 finale. I
Yeah,
think.
that was on
That's-
my list too.
That's such a banger. It's got the awesome karaoke moment, which is very funny because I'm like, you cannot gaslight me into thinking Chuck ever gave a fuck about Jimmy. Stop that. But that's very much Jimmy trying to remember fond memories of Chuck and from.
That's it. That's it.
So it's cool, and then it's obviously like you said earlier, the whole the bait at the end with Jimmy actually sharing his feelings, and he's like, haha, I was lying. That sucks. That's a good kick in the balls.
I
And
could
then,
not believe that still.
Fun and Games is another one. Fun and Games is a flawless episode. That is the one, the aftermath of the Howard shooting, where Mike's like, listen, you guys got to go about your day and do your stuff. Hardest take, I think the show should have ended at Fun and Games. I think that's a perfect way to end it because it's a sad and miserable and pathetic ending. And it's like, yeah, this character evolved into that. Suck it up. This is the guy you were cheering and being like, his schemes are so epic and funny. It's like, no, he's a sad little man who now has to live with the consequences of his actions. However,
Interesting.
that does segue into my next point because I couldn't think of 5 episodes before the podcast. My 5 episodes are episode 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 of season 6 because I think every single one of those episodes functions as a perfect finale for the show. And no matter which episode you end on, I think it's a very cathartic and fitting ending for the show.
That's beautiful.
If you
Damn.
decide to end on Fun and Games, which is the sad and melancholy ending, whether you end on Nippy, which is a man who's completely and utterly broken and alone, which is great and a wonderful cathartic look on Saul and his journey and where that led him, and him only finally realizing, shit, I've messed up. Breaking Bad is a good one because you kind of get the whole, look, it's that's more of your No Way Home, look how it ties into the Gilligan verse. Whoa, it's all the characters. But again, it's really, really well done and very articulately draws back to the themes of that show, but also highlighting how, one, everything's kind of Jimmy's fault. All of that is essentially his fault. But two, also retrofitting the Gilliganverse to kind of reframe it that Jimmy is essentially the protagonist of this universe, and Walter is a byproduct of his own actions. Everything that happens in Breaking Bad is because of Jimmy's choice that put him on the bad choice road, right?
Yeah.
Waterworks is a good one because you kind of get a little bit of Dark Jimmy. Dark Gene, I should say, Dark Gene, where he goes like
Dark
full
Gene.
like evil Gene. His Gene Sona kicks
Where
in.
he's almost
But then you
about
also
to kill
get-
Carol Burnett.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. And then that's also like a very like a miserable ending because it's like, oh no, he's back on his tricks, he's running away. But you also get your Kim closure. But the finale of the show is like a genuinely flawless finale because you get the retrospective with the Time Machine book, and you get to revisit every character one last time and kind of just soak in what their journey meant, the essence of it across Breaking Bad and El Camino, and seeing all that ties together. And like you were saying earlier, if I can remember the point that you were making, it was about it was the Walter and Jimmy conversation when they're in the little bunker hiding away. I think that's the best Walter White scene that they've ever put out. I think it's flawless.
That's a
I
great
think the way
scene. That's a
it
great
captures-
scene. Yeah.
It is not only the dynamic of Walter and the dynamic of Saul, but it is also
Yeah.
what both of those shows mean, what both of those shows are trying to tackle thematically, and where those characters are heading and how they reflect on their journey. That for me is like, that's a send-off to the Gilliganverse as a whole. So I think my 5 episodes are like the last 5 of the show. I like
I
a
love
good
it.
ending.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're 100% right.
I want
Good
to add
ending.
to something.
Good ending.
For what you're saying there too, Tate. I want to add on a couple of things. Because I had also struggled to put it together into 5 episodes, and hearing you say it like that, I'm like, I'm kind of on the same page.
Mhm.
Like I can't pick 5. My brain just doesn't work that way. I could pick little maybe moments and stuff, but it would just be the big moments in the series
It's
that everyone
me.
knows.
That's me.
But
Yeah.
there was a common thread throughout Breaking Bad in which Walter takes on a part of the persona of every person that he kills. And one thing that I just realized in you talking about that last best Walter White scene and the things we've been talking about agency and controlling the things within your control, I'm like, if we remember what Walt is doing through that whole episode is he's trying to fix the heater. And I realized that it parallels Gus not having control and cleaning the bath or cleaning the fries, and it's like that he's almost taken on that part of Gus's personality of like, I've lost all control again. What have I got control over? I know how to fix the water. Let's fix the water heater. I'm just going to focus on that and put all my energy into that and nothing else. And I really like how it ties their characters together. And I
That
also
is
wanted to
interesting.
say-
Yeah.
yeah,
That is super interesting.
yeah. I also wanted to say
Walter
that.
taking on
Yeah, go ahead.
No, Walter taking on all like the negative characteristics of all the people he kills, so he can find more ways to embody. Oh, woe is me. Oh, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, my life. Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah.
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 Him taking
And
on
yeah,
that because
you
he's
see
seeking
it.
pity. Yeah.
If you do watch the series again, I think there was something about Crazy 8 eats his sandwiches with the crust cut
Yeah.
off, and
Yeah.
post
Yeah.
there,
Oh, yeah.
Walt having sandwiches,
Yeah.
he cuts the crust off. Like he
Yeah, you're
honors the
right.
people he led out of this. Like it's crazy.
It's like a
But-
it's like a fucked up thing, but it's like
Yeah.
yep,
It's
that's-
So the last thing I wanted to add is, a lot of people were a little at odds with El Camino as a story. Like it didn't do
Mhm.
heaps. It's a bit slow. It's anticlimactic. Things like that. Me watching El Camino, I always watched as an epilogue, like a slow
It is an
last
epilogue.
chapter that just
It's an
closes the
epilogue,
book.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I want to say that to Tate's point about Fun and Games should have been the finale or the last episode, I'm like, it is. That's the last episode of the Better Call Saul show. And the final 4 episodes that come and wrap that up is, in my opinion, and probably agree with, like a 4-episode like epilogue, just slowly going. And then after that story, which we just finished, I just want to let you know where everybody like ended up. And that's how I view the series as well, because I'm like,
Yeah.
Fun and Games, that's the finale, baby. That closed Better Call Saul. Yeah, and I love those last 4 episodes. I know Kay was a little at odds with Nippy when it came out, but I think that's grown on you too, hasn't it?
Oh no, like I did my full rewatch of like while you were Jay going through yours when Nippy happened, and I realized in retrospect what happened to me as a viewer was I watched Fun and Games.
Mm-hmm.
Also, shit with my life was going on at this time, so it was like I watched Fun and Games. It was our last week in Israel before we were going, and my life kind of turned very different in the next coming weeks. And it was just so impactful that you're like, I just was so hit by a freight train of like emotion, but then being like, oh, all right, we're getting back into the Gene stuff. All right, let's go. You know, I didn't know if I wanted also, because I had theorized again, dumb expectations of like, is it going to take place like somewhat during Breaking Bad? Like, are we going to see stuff like from like during that time? Like, what's going to happen? And then when it goes to Nippy, I'm like, okay. And they do a brilliant thing to your point, Tate. They do the thing at the beginning with the theme song, where the theme song stops.
Yeah.
And it's like the tape ran out.
That's it.
And it's like the tape is we're no longer in the past.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they continue to do that throughout these last 3 episodes to both of your guys' points that's kind of what happens. And Nippy became one of those on rewatch. I was like, you need this episode. Because Gene has not thought about being Saul in like a year at this point, at least.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he has not thought about that. He's not allowed himself to have that. And it isn't until he has this moment with Nippy and like this thing of like, okay, I'm going to go and get this guy. And then he starts having this, oh, this is the way to get it. One and done. I'm going to get this guy off my case. And then they have that great little thing with Carol Burnett at the end where it's like, oh, you know, he just ran out with the wrong people in Albuquerque. I'm so glad he has a friend like you. And you just feel that like irony just sink in. But it's like so perfectly tied into the overall theme of the show is like, oh, and here he goes again. And then it's not until the next episode when Kim gives him, or Kim basically, what we know is saying, I'm glad you're alive, and just hangs up. And it's that moment of like, for me, Nippy became that calm of I needed to remember where Gene's head was at. And upon rewatch, I'm like, this is the right decision.
Yeah.
But initially I was like, what the fuck? I want to see
Michelle
more.
McLaren,
I want to see like,
she's
let's get
fantastic.
more into it. And then but it's so good.
Did you guys notice that the only color in the black and white episodes is when he's looking at the internet pictures of himself as Saul Goodman, which I thought was kind of neat.
And the secretly he shares with Kim.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
That's it. You're
That
right.
was a nice touch.
I love it.
That was a nice touch.
Yeah,
that was
it's like
beautiful.
the only things that remind him of like better times. Like it just it's the only light left in his life, if you will.
And that's sort of telling towards the end when he gives her that look. It's so ambiguous. Did he change or did he? You know what I mean? If the light of his life is the moments where he was conning
that
everybody.
whole Batman question, you know, it's like
I love it.
Which one is the mask? Is it Saul or is it Jimmy? Like,
or Gene?
Yeah.
Like what's the different ones there? Like that's what I think the show
did
meet so well.
The real
is being ever like, but or saying it's all of them, all of them at the same time. Like I think that it's all of them at the Saul time. I don't know. I tried. It didn't work.
I hate it. I'm going to end the stream right now.
No, you can't do this to me.
But on that note, anyway, it probably is a good time to wrap up.
Truly, we'll wrap up now. But yeah, like JJ, to hear you talk about this and to talk about it with you guys, going from just the reason why this is obviously a very long stream, but like one of the things that I'm so happy to finally have this is, again, starting the show. Nobody around me was watching, having to keep all of this of like a show that's so good that you're like, no one is watching this show, to get to be with people that I truly admire, who look at media the same way I do, with the deep analysis, the fact that you all love it, the fact that you all are in that same situation. It's beautiful.
I love it more now with you guys talking about it, honestly. Like I had one flaw in it.
It on now.
I had one flaw with it, and Tate closed that flaw.
Truly.
Like,
I agree.
Got you.
Now it's flawless. And so
it's
I'm like
literally flawless.
And so
I guess
that
comes the question, Keegan, like the age-old question that requires
the age-old
It's
question.
the reason why we're here. We have 2 brilliant shows that were masterfully crafted by Vince Gilligan and then additionally Peter Gould, both of which are as close to perfect as TV comes. So putting one above the
Correct.
other doesn't diminish the achievements of the first. You know, Breaking Bad was a big change for TV in that golden era, you know? But it still begs the question, which show is better?
JJ Tate.
They're trying to
Better.
act like two goats can't coexist.
Hey, yo, all right.
Your
What
Honor,
edges
he's
what?
avoiding
On the
the
fence.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's true. It's true. Maybe this is part of me that so badly just wants to say Breaking Bad, just because all of you won't. There's a part of me, but
No, you're
think-
wrong. It's bad.
Don't
bad.
be a contrarian for fun, shits and giggles.
excuse me while I make sure I stand out.
You're not like other girls.
I'm not like
actually
other. I'm not
Actually, not like
other
other facts people.
I'm not,
no,
I'm not like other.
Facts.
I just now noticed that your username is facts with an S, not a fact. I'm
two
saying.
today too. You're getting lucky two today.
Getting lucky.
To make a long story short, I prefer Better Call Saul just because it's like watching a filmmaker grow and the way they mature with their style and their development and being able to approach these things in a more nuanced and interesting way, developing their sense of filmography in the way that they've captured and the way that they use cinematography to highlight certain aspects of the characters, the worlds, the environments. Think fuck no more yellow Mexico filter. Thank goodness.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But
God,
I would
that's
say that's the case. But I think you can make a strong argument for both because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's two different beasts in the same zoo. You know?
completely.
And it's more just a case of what you prefer. It's apples and refrigerators. You're comparing what is a very explosive, bombastic, crime thriller, which has a lot of high stakes and a lot of high drama, but is also,
Yep.
for all intents and purposes, a little goofy and a little fun
Yeah.
and just so engaging to watch. To what is at the core of it, if you separate the Breaking Bad elements and just surgically remove them, is a very nuanced character study.
It's John
about
Wick
Cool.
versus
what it
Schindler's
is.
List.
Yeah, it's
Both
pretty
goats,
much.
bro.
Comparing-
Both goats.
you're comparing two different things, and you'll never catch me doing that outside of a situation like this. But I would say Better Call Saul. Just for me personally,
Sure.
that I was intrigued by how at the end of it, cycling all the way back to 3 hours ago, how at the end of the show I was more interested in the stuff that wasn't attached to Breaking Bad than the stuff that was.
And that's ultimately where I land as well, Tate. And again, I think you articulated it perfectly. Whichever show you choose, they're both brilliant. And
They're so different too. Like so, it's hard to
there's
compare.
something to love in a different way.
Yeah.
Like I love the adrenaline action of Breaking Bad with the dumb dynamic between Walt and Jesse that made me laugh. Like all the there's so much beautiful things there. But ultimately, if I talk about like who I am as a person and the stories I'm fascinated by, you cannot beat Kim and Jimmy. You cannot
Kimmy.
beat
That dynamic is so
that
brilliant. My
dynamic.
God.
Jim Believe.
and how
And-
they affected each other. And Chuck and Jimmy, like you cannot beat that.
But even like the titles themselves tell you everything you need to know about the shows. Like right now I prefer Better Call Saul because it's self-contained in a lot of ways because it just really focuses on Jimmy and his de-evolution. But at the same time, you're watching Walter White break bad. You know what I mean? While you start Better Call Saul with somebody that already broke his bad, and then you rewind it back to that moment. Like, you know what I mean? It's such an opposite journey. So it's a matter of what are you in a mood with? Like, what kind of a narrative are you in a mood with? As far as like Tate said, like it's a growth of a director, a writer. You see that on screen, the way they like capture moments and the dialogue, the way he treats Kim. Is such a sympathetic character as well. Like to me, that's important. So I have to take that into consideration. There's no weird stereotypes, like you said. There's no weird yellow filter headed down south. It's just landscape. It is just natural landscape, and that's the end of it. There's definitely growth in the filmmaking of Better Call Saul. It's just, and Bob Odenkirk is just incredible. Not that Bryan Cranston isn't brilliant as Walter White, but there's just something about character that broke bad and you watch it from then versus watching a character break bad.
Yeah.
I could not agree with you more in that.
It's like when you
regard.
know the destination, you get to enjoy the journey more. It's almost like in real
That's
life.
it.
we all know
That's it.
we all know what the destination is in the end, right? It's a sad destination for everyone, but knowing that destination lets you enjoy the journey a little bit more. If we didn't know
Correct.
what was coming, you wouldn't take.
When you know you're walking into nothingness, it makes that walk a little bit more interesting. So
Yeah.
maybe that's
Yeah.
why Better Call Saul just edges Breaking Bad for me. And again,
Yes.
Breaking Bad is a very special place in my heart. So
Yeah.
for this show to top it is massive.
Mm.
So
So
that's where I'm
I'll
at.
take
And-
that
and-
real big W for like being able to be like, yep,
We
we did
won.
it, Naf. We
And
did
of
it.
course, you guys know my stance, but like I agree with everything. Like
Yeah.
the biggest crux for me and the way that I explain it to people is similar to what Kay was saying. The types of stories that I enjoy, I love an intimate story. I love
Yeah, contain,
I
intimate.
love that that feeling of closeness that goes the stakes don't come from like a sky beam. It comes from I want things to work out between Chuck and Jimmy. Like I do. They're brothers. I have a brother. I know what it feels like to be at odds with a brother.
Yeah.
And like watching them tear each
Yeah.
other to pieces when you kind of know that like maybe there's a path here and it's devastating. And I think
Yeah.
the biggest thing for me that puts Better Call Saul above Breaking Bad is unlike other shows, for example, Walking Dead spin-offs that just go, let's do more Walking Dead, and after a season, let's tie it all back together, or things like that.
Yep.
Lame ass shows, bro.
Better
So
Call
stu-
Saul
like if-
had the tough job of justifying its own existence, which it did, and on top of that, like we keep saying, it took every single thing that the creators learnt from Breaking Bad and improved it. Like there isn't one thing that you could look at Breaking
Correct.
Bad in general and go, you may prefer things that happened in Breaking Bad, but there's no doubt that the way that this was shot, the music, the acting, like the writing, like everything is so much stronger in Better Call Saul. And it just comes from like you've got people that
Growth.
are already good at their shit growing
Mhm.
into this. And it goes to show as well with like, like Vince Gilligan being able to kind of pass the torch over to Peter Gould and go, you take it.
Yeah.
Do your thing. It's the same thing with Breaking Bad of like Dave Filoni being able to go to Jennifer Corbett and go, I know you helped us write some of these stories, but here, go, take it. You do your thing with it. Like I trust. I'm
Right.
fully trusting. There's something really
Casual
beautiful.
Bad Batch sneak in there. I see what you
But-
did.
Yeah,
Va-
and
Va-
similar to how Disney gave
Yeah.
Ryan Johnson complete creative control over The Last Jedi, he got to pick the story that he wanted.
That's
and
it.
Destroyed everything.
And that's why it works.
Anyway, I digress.
Anyway, so this has been a fantastic episode, everybody. No, but no, seriously, guys, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this with the guys. Thank you so much for obviously
Thank
taking
you.
the time. This was lovely. Tate,
It was
welcome
great.
to the pod. For anybody that hasn't heard from you,
Gonna bring him back with a movie.
I mean, come on. So absolutely. So now, obviously, guys, we'll be having you both on again individually to do a weekly watch list. Doing that now. Let's start with Tate. Tate, again, when can people find you?
Oh man, you can find me on TikTok at Star Wars Fact Guy. 1 fact only on TikTok, 2 facts on One with the Films. That's when I know more because I'm surrounded by smart people. You can find me at Star Wars Fact Guy on YouTube. You can find me at Star Wars Fact Guy on Instagram, but don't forget the underscores on either side, representing underscore gang.
Well played. And so underscore gang. Now, JJ, where can people find you?
I don't have underscores. It's just Lady Dragon JJ on all my socials. I'm most active on Twitter
change.
and I'm most active on Twitter and TikTok. So if you like nerdy stuff like Star Wars and Game of Thrones and MCU and pop culture and all that,
And
If
if
you
you want someone
find,
that really thinks
that you're
about, were we about to say the same thing?
Maybe. I was going to say, if you find that you're generally an unhygienic or unwashed person, you should definitely follow her on Twitter. You'll have a great time there.
oh my god, I don't do those as much anymore. It's just
I was going to go
trying
with
to not do that
different-
anymore.
I was going to be doing a different take. I was going to say if you're interested in someone who has very thoughtful criticisms and very thoughtful analytics again with the
Thank
media
you.
that she consumes, there we go. But I feel like
Nice.
both of those are resounding endorsements.
Mm.
Now,
appreciate
now,
it.
now, you beautiful son of a bitch, where can people find you?
Are you still talking to JJ?
Well, I was talking about you now,
Okay.
like of course,
Aw,
but like
Damn.
Riz
yeah,
King.
so you can find me at On Second Thought. The best place to do it is to look up On Second Thought on Instagram and use the link tree because that'll find all the different ways that you can find me because it's different everywhere you go. Thank you, Eliana, for joining us for the whole stream as well. She says it's way past their bedtime, but on the East Coast.
Shit, look at you, Eliana. You stayed up. We
Hell
were
yeah.
talking about that in the
Amazing.
stream before.
Yeah, so fantastic job, guys, for powering through this 3-hour stream. And Kate,
Damn.
where can people find you?
Oh, well, listen, you can find me at Movie Man Opinions on TikTok, Instagram, and Movie Man Opinion on Twitter. And my only opinion of the day is that Better Call Saul is better than Breaking Bad.
Beautiful.
And so I'll throw in another opinion just for fun, which is that Lalo Salamanca can get it. And so that's
that opinion or a
but
fact?
Sounds like a fact.
oh,
Sounds
I'm
like-
sorry, that's facts versus opinions. Sorry, I get them mixed up sometimes.
It's a fact. It's
But,
a
you
fact.
know,
Facts don't care
that's a
about your
fact.
feelings.
They
Facts
do
don't
not.
I don't
Though it
care
is a
at all.
fact that I would love him
I
to
don't
feel
give a
me.
shit. I don't give a
See,
fuck
but
about
I
your feelings.
care. See, but I care. Opinions do care about your
I don't care.
Okay,
I don't give a
cool.
fuck.
Any
Mike
final
can
thoughts,
get
guys?
it. Mike can get it.
Mike, yeah, I can see it.
Mike can't get it.
Just want to
However,
slap him on his
I-
bald head.
He's literally me. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Damn.
That's
Crazy.
true. Hold on one second. And well, guys, it's been obviously a wonderful chance to be able to go and do this with you guys, to be able to have this and just enjoy the conversations with you all, and to just be able to do this all together. And for all of you, we do have another one that's coming up next. Is it Kit next week, Matt?
Kit is next week. We're watching The Illusionist, a French animated
All
film that she's brought
right.
towards us. So if you guys haven't checked that out, then you should, and then join us next week for a chat.
Absolutely.
You're making a
And
face
Kit
there,
is fan-
JJ. What are you thinking?
The Illusionist. That's the one with. Which movie is that?
I couldn't tell you. I
No,
haven't seen
never
it.
mind. I'm thinking. Okay, never mind. I'm thinking.
Are you
something
thinking of the
else.
Vincent Van Gogh?
Yeah.
Loving Vincent.
I want to see that. I haven't got a chance to see it yet.
Okay, that's what
Loving
I thought.
Vincent.
Oh, I want to see that so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll all just do that one as the one we none of us have seen. But like,
good.
nonetheless,
Yeah.
Kit obviously was on our show before. She showed us the original Labyrinth, which neither of us had seen. And so
Really?
listen to that episode. We are unhinged about David Bowie's bulge. And now like
David Bulgy.
David Bulge. Well played.
Sexual awakening, that movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so now, guys, thank you again so much for tuning in with us. As we've said before, we have a lot of cool things coming down the pipe. We have various things that are going to be popping up on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Please just keep an eye on everybody here. It's all fantastic. We love you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And as always, as my friend Raglan says, you can't